I suppose we'll just start off with the best damn intro in the business. And we're off. As usual, if you'd like to support this channel, there are PayPal and Patreon links in the info box below. Nathan! We're lost, man. What are we going to do?
We need to hire that star immediately.
I was hoping you were there because you were stonewalling me earlier, and I said, what can I do to get him going, man? Yeah, good to have you. How's the computer holding up? Obviously good right now.
Yeah, it's still running in the same way it ran the live stream e-begging to get it fixed because it periodically breaks. It hasn't broken, so I'm still here.
But it could break during the show. So if you guys suddenly hear that or not hear Nathan anymore, you know why.
Yeah, but without dwelling on it too much, I've got an e-begging campaign out currently. So if you want to check that out, I did a live stream. QE was there. We did actually talk about flat Earth.
Yeah.
Amongst other things, specifically me needing money. And though that is embarrassing, though that is,
Not
we won't
embarrassing.
talk about it on the show. That's not what this is for. BALLBUSTERS is not for that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, go ahead. Go plug that. Yeah, it is. Yeah, this is part of it. This just isn't mine. It's ours. BallBusters. Remember back in the day, I said it's 50%, man.
50% of the work and almost all of the credit as well. It's wonderful.
Yeah, so plug it, man. Go ahead, do what you do.
Oh, well, fine. If you want to find out what I'm e-begging about, go and check out that video on my channel, Nathan Oakley 1980. I think the most recent live stream, the one that's probably got more interesting content interweaved with me e-begging, is the FED Nathan Oakley 1980 and guests. I think I named it something nice and simple, with a picture of Darth Vader with a flat Earth globe head thing going on with his hand out, for obvious reasons. There we go. Check that out on my channel if you want to see it. I personally would prefer to refrain from the e-begging on Ballbusters, especially when I'm here and we can talk about fallacies. Wonderful. I'd much rather do that. As much as I am in need and do have my hand out, fallacies, people will actually be interested in that a lot more.
I know this is one of your favorite presentations.
It's always people who get to a certain point. This isn't because of my e-begging, but I had my tech guy over last night for hours and hours and hours trying to figure out why the computer does what it does. Anyway, while we were waiting for software to download or disappear or be removed or be added, we were chatting about his various debates and discussions that he has in his shop with customers who come in. And obviously, being a flat earther, that's going to be a subject that comes up. And he was explaining to me that at various points when he'd be arguing with someone, he'd get to a stage where he had a really good point, a winning argument that he'd presented. It had been put to the opponent. And suddenly we're off in the weeds and it hasn't even been acknowledged. How does that happen in discussion? I was like, well, you probably need a hand wave dismissal and non sequitur fallacy for something like that. And he'd be like, yeah, exactly. I've started looking at fallacies. So Craig's been explaining that his fascination has turned towards fallacy. And you're like, yeah, when most of the proof that we actually present or the undoing of a claim for a globe that we present is based in logic, you would want, or you would hope people would want, to understand how you were duped with what seemed like logic. When they said, well, if Earth's a sphere, we will observe antipodal star rotation in the north and south hemisphere. We do observe assumed to be antipodal positioned rotation in the north and beg the question of south hemisphere. Therefore, Earth's a sphere. And you go, it made so much sense when I heard it. But then it makes a lot less sense when you interject the affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy with the parts that beg the question and point out where assuming one thing not necessarily connected to the other and stating your claim to be proofsy as the other, and then saying it again and affirming the thing that you already know to be true doesn't prove your claim. In this case, antipodal positioning, dropped in with a word like hemisphere, so that they can affirm the consequent. If P, then Q. That's if Earth a sphere, then antipodal rotation observation. And then Q, antipodal positioning, giving you star rotation. Therefore, Earth a sphere. Well, that type of fallacy, when understood, you can't not hear it when it comes out of an opponent's mouth, to the point where they don't have to actually go through the Q, therefore P bit. Once they've got halfway through, you already know exactly where it's going because you understand the fallacy's construction. We may or may not cover affirming the consequent fallacies in this particular Ballbusters broadcast. But if we do, it's an example of the begging the question on steroids, as I like to. I stole that from you.
We will.
Huey.
We will. We'll cover
it. Denying the antecedent. I think
that we'll cover that too.
Well, we will cover it, but I think it came up once in 7 years. It's been presented to me as the fallacy once, literally once. Now, it is a very common fallacy in debates about God. It's not so prevalent.
EvoTards,
if you will. But it's not so prevalent in flat Earth discussions. Very, very rarely will you get the if it's buried together, they existed together crap. You don't get that in flat Earth.
Yep.
But we'll cover that too.
You do.
Oh, Brian's here. What's up, man?
A pound says Brian will not have a flat Earth denying the antecedent. Is it denying the antecedent?
Yes.
Talking about yes. I bet you it isn't. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was going to give an example from the globe, as opposed to I don't know what you're expecting me to give now.
Denying the antecedent constant.
Yeah, well,
if they are buried together, they existed together, and never been found buried together. Therefore, they never existed together at the same time period. Denying the antecedent.
Yeah, I think I have to. What I was going to talk about there was I think it might be wrong, but I'll say it anyway. When they are talking about their distance to the sun, they have to obviously they have to obviously pre-assume a globe and a radius and all that, but they have to then pre-assume the Venus is also a sphere of similar radius and size, and then they use that angular size of Venus when it transits the sun to give them the distance to the sun. And they know the distance to Venus because they know the distance to the sun, and they know the distance to the sun because they know the distance to Venus.
Straight up circular reasoning, aka
Yeah,
begging the question.
yeah. Sorry, so that's not what you were asking for. But I said, as I started, I'd keep going and just get it out there.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good to hear. Straight up begging the question fallacy is more common than anything else. If Earth's a sphere, then it's basically all they will need, because they automatically work on the premise that they're on a sphere regardless of what they're claiming. They naturally beg the question. Good to have it early on.
Yes, but it wasn't what you were asking for. What you were asking for was denying the antecedent, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think that would cover that.
We don't. It very rarely comes up. It's a bit like with Route 90 when I waffle on about Coriolis effect for 5 minutes and then John just pipes up refracted curvature. No, you're going to need a flat plane for that axis, or something like that. And suddenly you smile at your own stupidity. It's a bit like that when I'm just waiting for a denying the antecedent, affirming the formal logical fallacy, and when it comes, I want to catch it, and if I don't, I'll still smile at myself for not catching it. If you know what I mean, it's one of them.
Yeah, you're never gonna get. I haven't heard one out here that's denying the antecedent. It's a very specialized one. It has a form. We'll go over it. Maybe somebody else can think of it and bring it up, but I don't think there's any context to where it can be brought up. We'll see though. But
I don't know how easy it is to digest logical fallacies if you don't have a generalized understanding of how to be logical or how logic works. So when I was very, very young, my father, who's very, very old now, was a programmer, and whenever he explained anything to me, it was explained with logic. So that, and going through a private education for a certain period of my educational life, logic was something I was taught. Now, I only found out after that people in a general public school education don't necessarily get any education in logic, or the elements of the trivium, more specifically. Some minor aspects they do, but specifically logic, they don't. I question whether or not. I don't know how easy it is for average Joe Normie. I'm not trying to elevate myself above average Joe Normie with this, by the way. But how well or how easy it is to digest logical fallacy, given that most people don't have a good grounding in logic. Maybe you can answer. I don't know the answer to that.
no, you're exactly right. I mean, it's not taught in public school. I mean, during your undergrad. I don't want to say undergraduate. In grade school, where it should be first introduced. Nope. Junior high, nope. In high school, no. I received no logic instruction in any of those at all.
No, that's how I understand it to be. And that's why I preface it by saying while I was a kid, I was getting taught logic because that's all my dad did. And then when I went into a private, we call a private education, actually, we call that public school, as weird as that sounds.
Right.
Public school isn't what we call what you think
I got you.
public is.
I got you. Yeah. Now everyone's thoroughly confused, but I understand what you're saying.
Regardless, what I received in a private education in a school that wasn't open to the public, there you go, was largely logic based. Now, when you're being taught something, it doesn't matter if you're in a state education or a private education. You don't know any different. You only know what you're being told in that moment. And you are blissfully unaware that somebody else in a different school is being taught to a different standard. You don't know that. But also, the person in the different school doesn't know that either. They don't know that they're receiving an education that's of a different standard. So you don't know what you don't know very much applies here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know what logical consistency is it going to be harder to understand what logical fallacy is? I ask myself. Anyway.
I would say if I had to do it all over again, because I went about it backwards, but I think that was the best way to do it, even though I did have some logic training and that was indirectly because I got interested in philosophy at university, so I took some philosophy courses, right? Because I found it interesting. So that's where I got a little bit of logic training. But I think the best way to go about it is, and this sounds, it might be wrong, but it just humor me, is to learn the logical fallacies first. Then study logic. I think I don't know. I do things in reverse order. I tie knots upside down and backwards. It just seemed to help me that way. Does that sound plausible? Pliable?
Yeah, I don't know how well digested this will be. What I do know is it's incredibly useful to understand how a logical fallacy is being employed in a generalized way. And the only way to get to that is to understand the form of each fallacy.
Yeah, but but be careful because there are formal logical fallacies and informal. So the formal ones, you can only state them when you're wearing a suit and tie. And
well, it makes sense to me.
I deliberately segued so Kiwi could go over this. Yes, they meaning they have form.
Yes. Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. You're not. That's where it might get a little bit confusing, but he's not saying that, folks. There's formal logical fallacies and informal ones, but the informal ones don't technically have a distinct form, but they do have form. That's how you recognize them, if you can follow that. I think I'm equivocating with the word form.
A circular reasoning isn't a formal logical fallacy, is it?
No.
Affirming the consequent if P then Q,
yeah,
therefore P, is a form that every fallacy that commits that will follow.
Yeah, the form is the P's and the form is the P's and the Q's.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, the form is more specific. Right?
It doesn't make it more fallacious either. Just because something's a formal logical fallacy, it doesn't have precedence over some informal fallacy. The informal fallacy is still fallacious, if you could follow that, right?
I will. But what I will say is that the identification of a fallacy voids the argument.
Yes.
And some people don't recognize what's being achieved when a fallacy is being highlighted. Now, there's a fallacy called... It's going to get confusing
the
quickly.
Fallacy. Don't start getting into this. It's in the presentation.
Okay. Oh, my bad.
I was just going to...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say what you were saying, just a comment on what you said a few minutes ago. If you want to learn, I think it is probably the best way to learn, because it's like when you're trying to learn how to use something that might be dangerous, like a drill or a gun or anything. You learn all the things you don't do. If you don't, and once you don't do any of them, everything else is okay, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of thing. So once you know what is illogical, the rest must be logic, kind of thing.
Ah, see, yeah, the process of elimination. Yeah, I'm following you. It's a little bit backwards, but I can respect it.
Good.
All right, so
knowing this,
go ahead.
Just before we get into the actual presentation, that's all I was going to say. The main point is that the argument is void. So upon identifying any argument, it doesn't necessarily mean that the claim that is being made isn't true, right?
Yes.
Now, to say purely based on identification of a fallacy that you've voided something that is patently obvious simply because it employs the fallacy is a fallacy. Just wanted to get that in so that people understand that the purpose of identification is to invalidate the argument. If I say that you can have red cars and then offer up and affirm in the consequent to validate my claim that you can have red cars, you can point out that my argument for having red cars is void because I employed a fallacy. However, there are still red cars. That's patently obvious to anybody who's seen cars. But you've invalidated the argument that has been utilised. Now, in that circumstance, for the sake of argument, if we were talking about the stars, you've offered up an affirming the consequent to prove that we're on a rotating body, and that fallacy is identified, that positioning to prove that we're on a rotating body with stars antipodal is void. It's then up to you, if you choose to offer some other evidence that in that position proves, according to you, an axial rotation claim. The previous argument that was made, affirming the consequent with antipodal positioning of stars assumed, is void. Not proving stars prove we're on a rotating body. Hope that all makes sense.
It didn't.
Didn't?
yeah, it did. I don't like the red card thing.
Yeah, but if we only just assume that we're a ball and that we're the ones spinning and not the celestial lights and there are giant things out there, then it's proof, right?
What?
Just trying to offer up the affirming the consequent. I get it, but yeah, no, it isn't. The argument to prove that is then voided. Now, default position stands. There's no need to, we'll get into this, I'm sure, in the presentation, reverse the burden and say, well, because you've voided my argument that Earth is a rotating body by antipodal positioning assumption, you must prove it's stationary. Like, that's not a positive claim that I've made or need to prove. The outrageous assertion is that we're moving. Now, you failed to prove that. There's nothing for me to do. Now, in respect to, well, what is the default position? Well, that nothing's happening unless you can show it happening is the default positioning. You don't assume something's happening, and if you can't show it, well, show it isn't moving, therefore stationary.
Show it isn't. That's proving non-existence. That's a logical fallacy.
Exactly. That's
right. Prove your non-phenomenon, please.
Right. You can't prove non-existence. That, you know what? I don't think that one's in here. Ironically. I
prove that thing that isn't happening, damn it.
Yeah, I can't remember. We'll go over it. I got it somewhere else. I just don't think it's within the confines of the presentation. But before we get to the presentation, there's a couple items that I want to bring up. Number one, shout out to Adam Meakin. He can't be here. His mother's very ill. So, Adam, we got you, brother. I didn't want to let that go by. Number two, but like I said, before we get to the presentation, I got something, couple things that I want to bring up here, and they've happened quite recently. The first one is, guys, you ain't going to be able to see this in Discord. Don't worry about it. The first couple, you won't be able to see them. You only be able to see the third one, which I'm going to go over a little bit more in depth. But let me put this over here. See, and last night I come back from a family reunion, and I pulled up Discord, and somebody sent me this Jaronism show. It's called Scam Hammer. And since I wasn't really doing anything, I was just going to relax. I went ahead and hit the video and let it play. And it was the most convoluted gaggle screw of butt-hurtedness, sentence fragment, carpet bomb barrage. I was sitting there nearly pissing myself laughing how stupid Jaron was acting. So I sent it off to everyone real quick, so they could get a gander on this thing. And it turns out that this morning I woke up and I see Arwen's message down here. It says he removed the video. So this guy went on for like an hour and a half just train wrecking himself, making a horse's ass out of himself, and then he deletes the video. That's what we're dealing with out here, folks. I'm telling you, he deleted it. I wish I should have downloaded it, but I didn't do it. So I don't know. Did anyone listen to this?
No, I'm afraid not.
I didn't get to it.
I did. I listened to about half an hour of it from the timestamp you gave me, and it was horrendous. Now, there was probably another hour after that. It was horrendous. It was. But to be honest with you, I'll be straight up. Nathan, my advice to you would be, if you're reviewing anything from Jaron, to treat it as if it's BBC, because I would not be surprised if he struck you on YouTube. his hate for you has really grown.
It was
So be
really
careful.
bad. He was going off. I mean, almost to the point of insanity. I'm serious. You wouldn't believe it if you'd heard it. Am I lying, Brian?
No, Kiwi, it was shockingly bad. Shockingly bad. Yeah. No, Kiwi's not exaggerating there. He's actually trying to not exaggerate.
Yeah, it was bad, Nathan. Bad, dude.
How bad? What?
Get
how
more
is something
specific.
bad?
It wasn't only the content. Of course, he was going over and over the respawning of, your debate and a couple other things. I was getting confused because he was charging you with something that he was doing at the time he was charging you. It was disjointed and convoluted, and I couldn't get a good grasp on it. Only the vitriol. Obviously the vitriol was palpable towards you, but he was not making any points. In fact, he was train wrecking himself. If you could get through the sentence fragments, because that'll throw you off if you pay attention, right? So it was, just take my word for it. It was pretty good, pretty bad.
Was he mostly projecting and just losing track that it was projecting?
Yeah, he was in and out.
You can drive yourself nuts that way.
Yeah,
you know,
he was
if
in
you
and
keep
out of
on
topics.
projecting.
He couldn't focus and stay on one, and he'd bring up secondary factors that weren't brought up before, poor transitions. It was like all over the place, bouncing all over the walls, man. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up. Now, we can drop it because
why someone would hate me so much?
I don't know, but it's bad. It was bad. And
maybe Nathan, maybe some of his older fans and all that now just started like giving them your arguments, right? That would be reason enough to like really spiral hate out of control.
Number one, I don't have any arguments.
Let me give some context. There seems to be, he brought up a lot of times, just off of what I just said there, a lot of times of people that were in his chat streams and maybe subscribers to him, subscribers of his, telling him where he was wrong concerning science, concerning you, and this whole issue. And it seems to be a continual thing, and whatever's happening with him, it's getting to him. Now, he spent, for the half an hour I listened to, he spent as much time trying to tell these people not to be subscribed to him and stay out of his chats, but mostly he spent that time calling you a scammer, and people should unsubscribe from you and stay away from you. You're just looking to get money out of people. And that's what his whole thing was. Now, I don't know if he continued on with that because I only listened to about half an hour.
Gotcha.
But it was mostly calling you a scammer.
What an absolute outrage. On a slightly different topic, I do actually have a GoFundMe going right now.
Yeah, but I like it when you do that, but there is no connection. So, all right, so that's one thing. Another thing, let's just stick with this. I mean, this guy has no honor. Now, he has no intelligence. He's as dumb as a bag of hammers, but no honor, no integrity. Deleting videos, you friggin' punk. You're just a treacherous, treasonous traitor. Also, scam hammer my ass. Okay, let's deal with it.
I'm sorry. I don't know why you hate me so much, Jaron. I don't know. If it's purely because I say science proves, and you spent a long time saying that science is a scam, and then your compadres say it proves flat Earth for whatever reason, if that's the cause of the hatred, then fair enough. But we've got fallacies to talk about to educate an audience on.
We're not ready for those just yet. We got another issue that I brought up briefly the other day. I wasn't going to spend too much time on it, but then I seen another video last night. It's friggin' treacherous. They're stealing my stuff. So he got his brother, shits at 40. He's stealing my stuff. It was the other day. I was mucking around in Discord again, and I seen creation versus atheism. Now that always catches my eye, whatever it's from. I always, tend to read over or pull things up because that's one of the topics that I'm interested in. But it was a creepy link. It wasn't like the typical link that you get. And I said, I thought about it for a second. I said, I'll just click on it anyway. And when I clicked on it, it pulled this up. So this is modern day debate, but it's not, the typical modern day debate. The platform and everything. This is Shits at 40 and another knuckle dragger, the atheist over there. And it's modern day debate, but you see how it's set up. It's just modern day debate. And I said, this seems pretty interesting. And I said, I wonder where this is going to go. Well, I proceeded to hit play. And then I'm doing stuff in the background, working around. And then I'm hearing these familiar terms that I said during my creator versus atheism presentations through the years. Like guided and unguided and things like, I said, wait a second. That's mine. Right? And then he proceeded. Now, he didn't show anything. He didn't share a screen here, but we're going to go to sharing screens here in a second because he did a follow-up to this debate. But anyway, he went almost step by step through my presentation on my website. And I was, first, I didn't know how to act about it because it was just so cringe, right? But I don't mind the information getting out. Listen. That's why I do all those presentations. That's why I put it up on my website so people can take it for themselves. So he's doing the thing that I want him to do, but I don't know. It's rubbing me the wrong way for some reason.
Because he's denying you in the process. It's like me. It's like me denying MC Toon, which I do, right? And his credibility, and then using one of his presentations.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
No,
yeah.
I don't mean to equivocate you to MC Toon. It's just I can't deny somebody and say they don't have credibility, and then to that degree, and then use one of these presentations.
Yeah, that's right.
That means I don't have credibility. Yeah.
Yeah. So last night, coming from a family reunion, and somebody sends me this. Right? It's Shits at 40. It's the atheism debunked. I said, okay, here we go. Right? So he starts talking, and you guys could see this inside Discord, right?
I'm going to go with yes.
Nah, can you see it? You got to join. Can you join me?
I watch stream. Yeah, just press on. Go to QE's icon and press watch stream.
Yeah, I can get sound out of it, no video.
Yeah, you can get sound out of it, no video. The sound's off and the video's up.
Oh.
You have the option to watch screen. It's definitely up, QE, because I'm watching stream right now.
All right. So just entertain me here. This is only for a couple minutes. This is friggin' creepy, dude. So he brings. I'm not gonna put the sound on. He brings Werner Heisenberg up. Now, how could he be bringing Werner Heisenberg? Werner Heisenberg is a pioneer of quantum mechanics. But Shits at 40 doesn't believe in quantum mechanics. But anyway, he brings this up. Now, this isn't on my website. This is part of the presentation. Some of the things I use for my presentations, I didn't put on the website and vice versa. But he brings this one up, Nathan. The first gulp from the glass of natural science will turn you into an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. Where'd you hear that from? It's my stuff.
I heard that from my brother when I was like 12.
Oh, come on, give me a break, man. But I'm going to put it over the top here.
But he didn't like it because he doesn't believe in God.
I'm going to put it over the top, though, right? So this is, yeah, just follow this. So the next thing he does is bring up, I missed it. This gentleman right here, George Wald from Scientific American. Where'd he get this from? Let me tell you where he got that from, folks. You ready? After he went through the unguided intelligence agency guided part, guess who pops up on my website? You guys ain't seeing it out there in Discord, but yeah, you'll see it.
George Wald.
Yeah, George Wald. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? He's taking my stuff, man. You friggin' thieving weasel. It gets worse. Right? So he's using George Wald. He's doing an okay job with it, right? Because it's not very difficult to get that spontaneous generation and the dichotomy between supernatural and natural. That's not too difficult to get through. But then he goes to, give me a second. He starts talking about the laws of thermodynamics. You know, one of my thermodynamics proofs, because I got 4 proofs on the website, right? It's essentially the laws of thermodynamics, information with DNA, quantum mechanics, and functional sequence specified complexity. Now, during this presentation right here, he goes over every single one except my quantum mechanics proof, obviously, because that crayon muncher doesn't believe in quantum mechanics. But guess who he brings up when he's talking about the laws of thermodynamics? Well, this is Stephen Hawking, right? And you guys heard this before. You heard me go through this, that this argument about whether or not the universe had a beginning persisted in the 19th and 20th centuries. You know that deal. And then he says that about Sir Arthur Eddington once said, don't worry if your theory doesn't agree with observations because they're probably wrong. But if your theory disagrees with the second law of thermodynamics, it's bad trouble, right? You guys remember this. So there must have been a beginning to the universe. All that's correct, but he got it off my darn website. Right from the thermodynamics proofs. You get right here. There it is. Right? And then he brings up, you know what he's going to bring up next. Sorry about that. Where'd it go? He brings up what?
At the end.
At the end of what?
You talking about Witsit, utilizing the arguments from your website. I want to, well, number one, I want to do a proper plug for your website, but I want to do that at the end, not at this moment. But
okay,
carry on.
Yeah, I'm carrying on. So next he brings up Sir Arthur Eddington. You guys know this. This is all my stuff. From Arthur Eddington. If your theory is found to be against the second law of thermodynamics, I can give you no hope. There is nothing for your theory but to collapse in the deepest humiliation. You guys heard me. How many times over the years have you heard me put this into arguments? Right? Why are you stealing my stuff, dude? Right? And there it is right there. Bam, right beneath. He's going down in order, folks. You think this is creepy? Watch this next one. Let me get it set up. So he goes into information. He doesn't know what information is. He starts to screw up because it starts to get a little bit more complicated down further. He does an okay job, but it's a headline, superficial, pukedness. But let's check this. So we got Arthur Eddington. Then we go a little bit further. Hopefully I didn't pass it up. It's going slow. Stop delaying, you numpty. Okay, here we go. Watch this, folks. Come on, back a little further. Back a little further. Yeah, one more. Okay, he starts talking about information. Who does he bring up? Hood and Gallus, the digital code of DNA. You've heard this before. DNA has 2 types of digital information. The genes that encode proteins, which are the molecular machines of life, and the gene regulatory networks that specify the behavior of genes. So shit's getting into information. So he's got Hood and Gallus, and the next one he brings up is H.P. Yaki about the genetic code and how it compares to modern communication codes. So we got H.P. Yaki, and then he brings up, guess who? Richard Dawkins. You remember the Encyclopedia Britannica about single lily seeds and salamander sperms? Folks, he went right down the list of the things posted on my website. I keep doing that.
Well, I'd say he's done his homework pretty well then.
Yeah, he does. Look at it. So right here, you got Hood and Gallus and the 2 types of digital information, H.P. Yaki, folks, and Richard Dawkins. He used all my stuff in the same exact order. What the hell are you doing, dude? What did you didn't give it?
Is this the appropriate moment or not?
No, we got one more. And then he's going to be the coup de grace, right? He brings up Norbert Weiner, the professor of mathematics at MIT. Remember, information is information, neither matter nor energy. There it is, you friggin' thief. What the hell are you doing, man? Right? Norbert Weiner, everyone knows this is one of my key points in this presentation, right? The information presentation. Also, the supernatural atheist. There it is, folks. Norbert Weiner. Information is information, neither matter nor energy. What shit's at 40? What are you doing, man? You're pawning this off as your presentation. It's all mine. At least, what am I, chopped liver? At least say, listen, I got this information from that crayon muncher QE. At least do that. You're busted, dude. All right, go ahead.
Right. So in that exact vein, website is a fantastic resource. So first, can you just give its full name, please, QE?
Yeah, it's a globeterminator.com. They're all looking at it. You're not.
The globeterminator.com. Now, I'm talking to every one of you in the audience right now. You need to go to that website. You need to look at these arguments. You need to understand these arguments. You need to use these arguments. That's what they're there for. Unless you wits it.
Well,
Unless you wits it, don't that. Listen, I don't, like I said, I don't mind all that much. Right? If he's going to use this as a presentation, more power to you. But at least,
Okay, I've got to stop here. I've got a lot to say on this.
What do you got to say on this, dude? I don't know.
I've got a lot to say on this because I disagree.
I
with
have
you.
something to say later as well.
All right, you can disagree. That's fine. Go ahead, Nathan. Go on.
I fundamentally disagree with this. I don't like it one bit. However, to my knowledge, I've never actually come up with an argument beyond saying, that's mine, 30 seconds after somebody said it, and then copyrighting it Nathan Oakley 1980 on the spot, and then saying it thereafter, and it's just mine. Well, that's kind of symbolic, but at the same time, maybe I don't have any justification to say you shouldn't use my arguments because I don't have any. When I said earlier, I don't have any arguments. If Jaron's getting people moan to him that you're going to need a flat earth for that, well, where's that come from? Has that come from me? Or has it come from quantum eraser, 10th man, refracted curvature, some very rarely Brian's logic? But sometimes Brian's logic.
I was going to call out my own name there.
But my point is that maybe I'm not justified, but what I preach is a very different tune as opposed to, that's my argument. Why are you formulating it into this? Now, I get it. You've explained this to me, so I'm not decrying what we've already discussed or ignoring it, right? I get that what you're saying is slightly different to how I'm going to pitch this in a second. You're saying he's gone down the list and basically given a play-by-play presentation straight off my website. Now, that ain't really, although I was joking when I'm like, go and use it. Take these arguments. You know what I mean? Which you have said when promoting your own website, I might add. Irony of irony. Anyway, my take on it is slightly different, right? I say, yeah, do take ownership of these arguments. But there's a very distinct difference between understanding the arguments and then putting them across from you, how you would put that argument across, as opposed to how Quantum Eraser has published it and how you can read it off pretty much verbatim. That's not taking ownership of an argument. That's just parroting it off, which is kind of sad. And I can understand QE taking umbrage with it. But my shtick is to say, give you an example with context to what we've discussed already, which is Jaren. He's got Ruhif and he's got some other dude debating back and forth. Ruhif starts using on screen a flat plane to get an angle to a star. And while he was doing it, Jaren said specifically, quote, you're going to need a flat earth for that. While Ruhif was giving the presentation. In other words, he talked over him. When Ruhif said, I'm sorry, what? Jaren said, nothing. Now, I, in that moment, went, but he's right. Jaren's right. Not, that's my argument. That's not how I would position this. I would cheer if Jaren actually had the balls to go through with declaring to someone when it's on screen You're going to need a flat Earth for it. It's in your diagram on screen you're using right now. That would be victory for Jaren and the flat Earth in that immediate moment. Would I say, but he's literally verbatim quoted how I use this argument when I say you're going to need a flat Earth for that. He said the verbatim quote I say. I wouldn't care. I'd praise him. Potentially wouldn't even mention that that's a quote directly from me verbatim. Why bother? Just say, yeah, you annihilate that guy when he uses a flat Earth. How dare he? When he's here to prove
That's
a globe.
at two different levels, though, dude. That's just one thing you say, like welcome to flat Earth or anything else. I'm talking about taking information sequentially right off my website, dude.
I get it. I am giving a different distinction so that people don't go away thinking, oh, I better not go to Quantum Eraser's website, look at this argument, understand how it's formulated, and then next time some Dumbo Evotard starts telling me what's what, I can correct him with my understanding I got from QE's website. Because that's precisely what you do want people to do.
Yes.
But because it's on the surface, it seems like, well, Whitsitt went to his website, went and took the arguments, presented them almost verbatim, and that QE had nothing but criticism. You're like, no. I want you to understand the argument, and then there would be no need for an almost verbatim rendition of QE's website. You'd be putting your own spin on how you present it when you present it because you've taken ownership rather than plagiarized it.
Now, there is no plagiarism. There is no plagiarism here under the strict definition because he's not taking what I said. I don't quote myself in these things. However, he's taken the structure and my argument specific. You know that he used the functional sequence specified complexity, but he didn't call it functional sequence. He called it ordered sequence specificity or something like that. He even delved down. He took all the arguments except the quantum mechanics argument.
Did you even have a sandcastle? Do you have a sandcastle? Oh, hey, Adam.
Oh, it's Adam here.
I'm only here tonight as an intellectual rape counselor.
That's what it is. It's intellectual rape. I was thinking that same thing.
The only way I'll put this is you're marking a student's work. There's a point where you say that's just blatant plagiarism. You got to put your own thing on it. But what are you worrying about? I'd go with Nathan fundamentally. Yeah. If he picks it up and runs with it, and all he does is copy what you've done, that's a compliment.
I understand that.
To the structure. Doesn't mean it can be improved. Doesn't also mean it needs referencing when you're in the middle of something. You know, it doesn't need it. Everybody can see what it is. It's quite hilarious. I particularly, you see, when I was talking about intellectual rape, there's a point where you can make the same point, but to just cite the same references shows a lack of your own intellectual laziness.
Yeah,
you've not done the work. You've not put it in. All you've done is take somebody else's. So maybe as a point of pure honesty, you should at the end say, and I'd like to thank Huey for his. This is where most of this presentation came from, but it's not a prerequisite. The only difference I'd say is if it's a presentation, a reference I think is gentlemanly. If you're in debate, then it's your argument, and therefore you own it because you're standing there. It's part of your armory. But in a presentation, I think it's a little different and a little bit.
Yes, he's presenting. Correct. It's a little different when you're in a debate, but when you're presenting, you're more or less saying, "Well, this is mine. I'm teaching you guys this, but it's mine." Just all look.
If you two have been the victim of intellectual rape, you can call 1-800 lazy nerd.
What was it? 1-800 what?
Lazy nerd.
Lazy nerd. Go ahead, Brian. Brian had something to say on this.
The only problem with this, right now, not say the only problem. The fact that he disowns you or won't recognize you, right? He actually makes a point of disrespecting you, let's just say, right? and then he uses your presentation, right? That's funny, right? Now, the fact that the type of information he's putting out there is good, and I hope people latch onto that. But the only annoying part for you will be when someone comes back who you don't know and doesn't know you and starts telling you about your own presentation and calling it witsits. You know what I mean? That's the problem. That's what's going to happen.
I talked about this only today in the on the Friday show on Flat Earth Debate before it crashed. Validation Boy presented an argument on his stream, and he and I were both watching Cathexis. Now, not side by side, he wasn't on my lap or anything. You know what I mean? We were just both happened to have been watching that show at that time when Cathexis and QE were making shows. Now, I would assume that I was too busy talking about cake and spamming 666 in the live stream chat or something, because I wasn't paying close enough attention to pick up on a very valid point. Every single claim to be globe argument or proof of a globe will start with the assumption that Earth is a globe. Absolutely profound. When Validation Boy presented that to me, I'm like, that is just awesome. Kudos. And I cited him. I'm like, there is a Validation Boy argument in regards to how we have this circular reasoning, affirming the consequent or begging the question fallacy employed. And that is to say that every single assumption of a globe proof will start with the assumption that Earth's a sphere. Thanks to Validation Boy. QE comes along one day and says, why do you keep crediting Validation Boy for that? Like, that's where I heard it. Like, he got that from me. Here's me on Cathexis' channel, way predating him saying it. I'm like, I better not continue to credit Validation Boy for that. Not that it's one of those where you could almost say, oh yeah, I vaguely remember you saying it on Cathexis. I don't.
Yeah. I didn't. I not only said it. It was in print.
Indeed. There was no denying it was your argument. From that point forth, I was like, yeah, that's definitely yours. But there's so many of them. Sorry, Brian, that was a segue off your point. My bad.
No, it wasn't really. You were pointing out the very same thing as I was, that someone will come along to QE and start telling him about the presentation that Witsit, telling him all about Witsit's presentation. It'll happen, not right now, but it'll happen in the future. Some idiot who doesn't know who QE is, but follows Witsit, will tell QE somewhere, all in Discord or something, all about Witsit's brilliant presentation. That's what's going to happen, and everyone in there will know what's going on with laugh. But because what's happening is Witsit is
final. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Go on, just the last bit. Witsit is kind of setting himself up to be pseudo QE, is he not? That's what. Sorry, Nathan. I just had to get that part in because that's what it's looking like. To me.
I remember an attitude that David Weiss, God bless his soul, because he's a wonderful guy, was making to me once when I was talking about Eric Debay. We're discussing some of the bad behaviour that Eric Debay has exhibited. Right, it's just another dude. If you don't know who he is, it doesn't matter. Just another flat Earth dude. And discussing whether or not it's good or bad. And David Weiss's attitude was, if he's bad or a shill or a paid agent, give me 100 more paid agents, because the amount of people that he's exposed to this subject is countless. And that was David Weiss's attitude. So off the back of that, I ask you, QE, what would you prefer? That he did in fact take ownership of your argument, but buggered the whole thing up and lost, or pretty much went down the line and gave you a play-by-play rendition of a QE presentation, but won? Which would you prefer?
I'm not concerned with that, because this was a presentation. This wasn't a debate. So he positioned himself as the educator here, right? And used most of my stuff. Now he put some stuff in there, his slant, just to kind of, I don't know if he did it subconsciously or not, but most of that information, anyone that can fog a mirror can see it. It comes from me. All he had to do was just say, like somebody else said, I don't know whether it was Brian or Adam, was just say, hey, a good majority of the substance of this presentation was from that Crayon Muncher QE. I'd be good with that. That's fine. Then drive on. But what the hell? You gonna play it like you've done all this research and you've come up with this?
It's stolen valor, is what you're saying.
It's in a sense.
Yeah, it's there. Like, I mean, as I said earlier, you can't deny someone. I can't go around denying MC Toon and then using one of his presentations. Do you know what I mean? I'm making a point of not crediting him when it's obvious that it's not his presentation to anyone who knows about it. Or it's not my presentation. It says, do you know what I mean? I can't do that. It's dishonest.
It sounds like baller tactics. Sorry.
You can take the presentation, somebody out, and make your own separate point. Like I said, this is intellectual rape. You're just basically stealing it. It's like taking somebody's lecture notes and just go and giving the same presentation, like a stand-in teacher. At the end of it, they know that's kind of it. What I would say is, it's not cricket, is it? It's just not gentlemanly conduct. If you've given somebody else's point, somebody else's, and this is the point, it's somebody else's research. I referred to the citations earlier. That's the point. If you've got different ones, you can make the same point. To make the same points with the same citations, it shows you've just been lazy, and the gentlemanly thing to do would be to give credit. Like using somebody else's joke. Look at the comedian thing where, I don't know who it was, uses somebody else. Is it that fat lad? That British comedian that's in America now, part of the pedo group. He got done for stealing somebody else's joke, and it's analogous to that. The joke's still funny, it's still pertinent. Everybody knows it weren't yours.
I remember that, Adam. It was, what's his name? From London. He called out someone else, some other comedian, who was going around using a joke that was originated with a completely different person.
Happens all the time. This is really common. People stealing other people's jokes.
But this was
do you know who Bob Monkhouse is? Do you remember Bob Monkhouse?
I do, yes.
Bob Monkhouse had thousands of really, really good jokes, and he put them out there, and everybody used them, and nobody ever credited him. But so many jokes that you've heard trace back to Bob Monkhouse. I remember Jimmy Carr doing his tour about comedy and how it's constructed. I think it was Jimmy Carr, and he went through a whole Bob Monkhouse bit using nothing but Bob Monkhouse jokes, and every one of them you were familiar with, but not from Bob Monkhouse. This is a really common thing. People steal. Now, it's a problem when someone's on the circuit and they're going to go up on stage, because you described it really well, Adam. As soon as you said that, this came to mind. It's funny you said about comedians, because this is exactly the example. When you talk about a lecture, and if it's an oral lecture or an oral piece that you're giving for the final exam or whatever, and you stand up, you give your oral presentation, and then it's followed by someone giving basically the exact same presentation. How's that going to go down? Well, that's the problem in comedy, isn't it? You go up, you deliver your repertoire of jokes that aren't yours, and the next guy on stage who originated the joke can't tell his own joke. He's going to be furious, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, can I ask something? Make an observation. I made an observation there earlier. It's slightly off topic, but it's on topic. QE, Werner Heisenberg. He was one of the heavyweights of quantum mechanics. Yes.
Yes.
One of the most well-known of all time.
Yeah, he was one of the pioneers. Yeah.
Pioneers, yes. And would you say? Sorry, yeah.
So I'm uncertain about that.
He's uncertain about that. That was pretty funny, Adam. Brian didn't get it.
I don't get that.
Because it's Heisenberg's certainty principle.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. No, yeah, sorry. But I still wouldn't have got. I still didn't get it. I wouldn't. If you didn't say that, I wouldn't have known what Adam's talking about.
Yeah, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. That was pretty funny, Adam. That's pretty. That was deep.
Yeah, that. But I about Heisenberg, not Heisenberg in particular, but just his ilk. To understand quantum mechanics, you would have to have a pretty high your intellect would have to be pretty good, yes, to have even just an understanding of it.
Sure.
Would you say?
Yeah.
Right, and to be a pioneer of it, then you would have to have a pretty good above average.
You'd think above average. Above average, right?
Yeah, right. Let's just say so. Heisenberg was a sharp dude, right? Now, if you take faith like Catholicism or let's say Islam, any of the, let's say, religious faiths, a lot of people have a belief in a creator, a belief in God. But when it came to someone like Heisenberg, that's different because he's working off a purely scientific basis, and he proved to himself, and then obviously to other people through quantum mechanics that there is a creator. There has to be.
Yep.
Now, is it possible that there's a lot of people who are involved in they like science and anything to do with science, and they get involved in that, and most people are on the surface, they're plastic, unfortunately. Is it possible that because these people, a lot of them don't have faith, as in a lot of them aren't Catholics or involved in a religion or whatever, right? Is it possible that to get to the point of scientifically understanding that there has to be a creator, that you need to have high enough intellect to get to that point? That a lot of people just don't have.
No, I don't think so.
But just well, how come there's so many atheists then who are also think they believe in science? If you, I know that sounds stupid.
There's the trouble,
you know what I mean?
isn't it? No, science is simple. They think they believe in science. They don't. They believe in pseudoscience that confirms to them that there is no creator, that it's on a ball in an infinite universe, expanding at 1 billion miles a day or whatever. Yeah, that's what science tells them. That's what they believe what science is. That doctrine.
Yes.
Robert Dolby, or whatever he's called, in his song, they blinded me with science. Very true.
Yep. But
if you go back to whole,
but that's a good question that Brian. I think somebody else asked me that a long time ago. I think it was Slick James Johnson said, so you have to be, supremely intelligent to figure out that there's a creator. No, because that quantum mechanics point right there is just one point. I mean, I can get there many different ways. But no, you don't have to have an IQ over 100 to figure out there's a creator. Irreducible complexity would just do it.
You go with irreducible complexity. I like functional sequence specified complexity.
They're connected by the lips.
I know, but I'm trying to link
requiring a higher IQ.
I just want to link it back to I said right at the beginning of this discussion, which is an understanding of logic. So we've brought it and segued it onto science, which is rooted in logic. The method is based in logic. Understanding logic, or the lack thereof, and being blinded by science, means that the person that you're describing, Brian, has been poisoned along the way when you question whether or not these people are intelligent enough. I don't think it has.
What?
I think anybody can understand the basic logic when you. I know it's a long title, but when you take functional sequence, specified complexity, and explain it with the sandcastle, I don't think that you'd have to be above 80 IQ to get that.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't saying, just so you know, and for you, QE, so you know, I wasn't stating that that's the only route to getting the knowledge, like through the quantum mechanics Heisenberg route.
Right.
But there seems to be a lot of people who are doing a lot of sipping on the top of the glass and never getting to the bottom.
Yep. Correct.
Yeah. So maybe it's a different. Maybe it's not.
Yeah. And metaphorically, why is that? In the metaphor, the glasses not constantly have liquid in them. No, they don't. So what needs to happen in order for that to be the case, that nobody ever gets to the bottom of the glass? They need to keep filling it, don't they, Brian?
Or stop drinking.
With the feast of nonsense.
No, they don't stop drinking. They just
don't know they're drinking.
Fill it.
I love this analogy, Aaron. Hold on. They don't know they're drinking. That's the problem. But what's simultaneously happening in this analogy is someone's continually filling the glass up.
Yep. With the feast of nonsense in liquid form. Yes. They've liquefied it.
Yes. Absolutely correct. Feast of nonsense.
They got a drip.
Propaganda. Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Sorry, Nathan, for laughing in over the top. I just had to laugh when Kiwi said that. They liquefied in new
What did he
paste
say? I
form.
missed that.
I
I
said
missed that.
they liquefied it because we're talking about glasses and liquids. But then I used the feast of nonsense, and then I thought about it, and I said, wait a second, that's food. They're going to have to liquefy the feast of nonsense.
Yes,
Well,
it's
you know what it is. Sorry.
it's a protein shake.
Yes.
Well, you know what it is. Let's just say you take. Let's just take any sport. At the top level of that sport, there's actually a very small amount of people in comparison to the amount of people that play it. So let's take baseball. The top baseball players in the world are in number very small in comparison to the rest of the people that play it. So I think maybe it's no difference when it comes to this type of a topic where only certain people reach that point. A lot of other people never actually progress because they don't really want to or something. Yeah.
This is great. What a great analogy. So I can bring it back to a Carl Jobs example. Credit him for this originally. Who cheats? And who gets found out as cheating? Right? In gaming, there's a couple of different categories. One is the outright fraud. The guy just cobbles together a world records and puts it out there, and it's really obvious that guy's never put in any work or effort to achieve that world record. Outright fraud, just a pretender clown by equivalence in our arena. Then there's the other type of cheat. Now, the other type of cheat is actually a really good player. He's just not world class or holding that world record. And that guy also cheats and is much, much, much harder to detect because he just can't put in the time. That's the equivalent in this example to Witsit.
Yeah.
He's not bottom of the league. He's not trying to pretend to be a flat earther with no experience. He's actually up there, right? He's on our level. And some people might not like me saying that. It doesn't matter. I don't care. In this arena, he's one of the fellow sportsmen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a shortcut out there. There's a joke that can be stolen. It doesn't matter which analogy we give. It's the equivalent of just taking something because it's easier to take it than to do the research.
Yes.
I don't know how that segue came.
Are you calling him Witsit Armstrong?
What's wrong with that?
Witsit Armstrong. That's brilliant.
Oh, sorry, Adam. I couldn't hear on Adam. I had to just get it over.
What did he? Was he blood doping? What did he do? I know this is a terrible segue right in the middle of this.
What's
What, I
it?
forgot what
He used
I remember he had one nut or
erythropoietin.
something.
I think it was a blood compound, erythropoietin, which was a precursor to allow you to. I think it was just hold more oxygen or something.
Yeah.
I think it was erythropoietin.
Erythropoietin. Oh man, that's Oh yeah. Yeah, that's my love language.
It must be right, otherwise it wouldn't have just fallen out of my head like that.
Yeah. It was something associated with it, yes.
Right, but he was
Funny enough.
because of on top of his game. He was the top of the game, right? It's the same with the world record holders. When someone finds a splice in their video game that have submitted, or finds an anomaly that only the other best players can spot. Well, in this instance, we spot when people have just taken a whole chunk of information and put it out there. But in regards to your average guy who's just, it's like a Christian heliocentric star observer. Don't want to give him a better, more lofty title. But you try and fathom your head around, well, why isn't it that you can't recognize the connections to God when you're an astronomer and you're a Christian and you're a pastor as well, or something crazy like that? You know, you go, why is it you can't recognize that? Well, because they are having the glass filled up constantly.
Yep.
Yeah, they never make it to the end of the glass because someone keeps on pouring April rubbish in there.
All right, fair enough. I think we
How'd you
went.
get to the bottom? No, there's got to be a conclusion to that. How'd you get to the bottom? You got to figure out who's filling the glass up, and detach yourself from them quickly. Yeah, it's only when you sit outside, you'll often be ridiculed for being on the outside of that particular process. It's only on the outside that you can look back in and go, "All right, that's how they poured all of this nonsense into everybody's glasses." Look, none of them notice. Wow, everybody's drinking from the glass. Amazing.
But
You
I
have to
think the
step
thing
outside
is,
the sphere. Go on.
I think the thing is to actually get a whole new glass and stop anyone going at it.
No.
All right, then
realise-
no.
realise
Remember the
there is
glass
no
God is
glass.
waiting for you. We're on a specific metaphor about finding God in respect to either functional sequence specified complexity or any of the multitude of arguments that could be offered up in this regard lead you to, you asked for, a scientific evidence of God. Yeah, there are definitely examples. Check them out on QE's website, use them, and then get told off for using them. I'm still here. Did my computer die?
Part of the skill is recognizing it. They're trying to top the glass up. I saw some fantastic glass topping this week with is it the equinox of Saturn or something? Just the crap they feed you to hold their paradigm together as if that means something. This light in the sky looked a little different and it means this. Recognizing it, you soon get to the bottom. That's part of the skill. If you're not able to recognize it when they're trying to top it up and stop them, you will keep drinking forever, won't you?
Did you want to add something, Says who?
Yeah, I wanted to add something real quick, if I may. I think the most frustrating thing about this particular topic, because all of Huey's arguments and all of you guys have great arguments and you make them really accessible, and that's why we appreciate you all. But if someone takes those and then runs out into the arena, right, and we're going to use Witsit because we're talking about him, the greatest danger and the greatest frustration is that all of these arguments are great until, let's say on modern day debate, once we get to this topic of gravity, the feast of nonsense comes in and it undermines all of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything could be spot on, good arguments, destroys the lie, until we get to the point where we're going to start speculating about something that is totally unfounded, electrostatics, whatever, and then it undermines the whole thing. And it destroys the entire...
Yeah.
Right,
That's
right.
some good.
So,
Yeah.
Am I picking up what you're putting down? Are you suggesting a sort of Alex Jones-esque, give them 90% really good research and evidence of, in this case, flat Earth, only to poison it all with just a little bit of gay frogs?
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
absolutely.
Yep.
Hey,
Absolutely.
gay frogs are real, dude. It's
I
not
was
a
going to use Arwin, an Arwinian reference here, a kind of like gaming reference. If it's your go in Dungeons and Dragons and you go, right, I'm going to attack the guy, and you pick up the weapons provided by QE, right, and you destroy the person, and the next round it's gravity, and you go, I'll pick the feather ether duster to attack my opponent with. That's on you. So be it. It makes you look a muppet, doesn't it? Nothing to do with any previous arguments used.
True.
So be it.
Yep.
True, but
Yep.
I think both have a point there. True. Yeah, it depends on the person viewing it and whether they're a numpty or somebody that can fog a mirror.
Or if you
Well,
like
that's
them,
That's
and we
not what I
basically
said.
hate it.
It's about, you can't help who it is using your argument, QA, right? And if they flatter you enough, directly or indirectly, and use your argument, they'll win. Okay. If in the next breath, in the next argument, they decide to go a more Etherean route and attack a ball earther and try to reascribe this unproven concept of gravity with Ethereum mechanics, then, like I say, it's like picking up a feather duster, isn't it? You're going to lose the next round. But just because he's lost that round with his weapons of choice doesn't mean he didn't win the previous round.
Gotcha.
Then you've got ascription to.
I gotcha. I'm tracking with
no,
you.
I
I see
agree.
both of your points.
Agree.
Hold on. I see both of the points that who was that says who or says you. He's got a point, and so do you, Adam. I think there's a balance there, right?
Oh,
Well, thank you.
Yeah, there is.
Well, I just fundamentally disagree with Adam, but there we go.
Yeah, we could just leave it at that. I think both have the points. I'm following you, Adam. I got you, but a lot of people aren't that clever to pick up on that. Follow?
Yeah, once you discredit the individual with some nonsense like ether or gay frogs, there's a good chunk of people that will walk away from you at that point and discredit everything you've said up until that point. That's the point of doing it that way. And I think that's what the guy who was suggesting in that regard. He was only hinting at it vaguely.
Yeah.
I've expanded on it. I'm now blaming him for it. But nevertheless, I think that's what he's hinting at.
He's saying it cast a shadow on the previous points that were made. It cast some, maybe not a dark shadow, but a slight shadow, maybe a little bit of doubt, since you screwed this up with your dielectric acceleration incoherently, that it casts sort of a shadow on the previous arguments that might just show them that they might have some holes in it. Do you follow? By mere innuendo.
It's enough doubt.
It may, if you're after consensus opinion to
Yes.
further yourself forward. And this is where the individuals are at fault, irrespective of what any debater's saying. The individual themselves, if they take that and allow one previous point to be that was won to be negated by a future point that's irrelevant,
Sure.
that's a weakness in their thinking.
Yes, that's what that's what I said. Yeah.
I couldn't disagree with that, because that's absolutely what is being taken advantage of in this scenario. So what you're saying is your average Joe normally will take a consensus view in the consensus world that they live in that offers them the consensus opinion about their reality. They might just take the consensus view over whether or not their discernment of the individual is recognized to be irrelevant over the argument. That would take a certain level of discernment, and your average Joe isn't very bright and does absolutely go with the consensus every single time.
The lesson there then is don't finish on gravity.
Yeah. I remember a key moment when I went on, what's the Clown McLeod or whatever you call him? Steve McRae.
Oh,
of the
Steve McClown of the Clam McClowns.
That's the one. When I went on his show, this is 6 years ago, maybe even more, maybe it's 8 years ago. I don't know. I lose track. The point is, I went on with Anthony and with Chris. One of the first questions that was raised was, do you believe that reality is based on consensus? Now, when that was asked, in my mind, before the answer came from their side, the Globe side, I was like, obviously they're going to say no. I mean, that's just, what, I can't believe he's even asked this. And when the answer came, oh yes, absolutely. I could not quite believe what I was hearing.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that moment till the day I die. It was the moment that I recognized the world I really live in, what people are really like.
Yeah. I think I remember that part. Yeah, it was a jaw dropper, and it caught you off guard. Yeah, too funny. Well, Steve McClown of the Clan McClowns had many moments like that, by the way. But that
Speed
one
of sound
stood out.
is zero in a vacuum.
Yeah. That's just one. The monochromatic monochromatic, apathetic, theistic, retard evolutionist theatricy. That's what he is, or something like that. All right, so good points, ladies and gentlemen. It kind of took longer than I thought it would. Do we want to get into the logical fallacy presentation or not?
Yeah, I'm keen. My computer's still working.
You guys up for it?
What I came for.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that
Yeah.
not an opportune moment for a shout out? Are you still fundraising, Nathan?
Me, hell yeah. Of course this computer's broken.
I'm a little out of touch, but that just sounded like an opportune moment to just reiterate and somebody posting chat.
I did. I stressed the fact that I've got a GoFundMe going at the beginning, in spite of QE ignoring me saying I didn't want to necessarily do it on BallBusters, but he's like, this is 50% your show, e-beg away. I referred people back to the literally 2 videos I've put out in the last 24 hours explaining my tech guy's been over. He spent all evening here till almost midnight or whatever time he went, figuring out why it was doing what it does. And it did do it while he was here. Thank God. It did it almost immediately when he sat down, actually. Great. I'd timed it such that it would do that, or I hoped I had timed it, and it did. So yeah, it's a hardware issue. He's tried to figure out what's wrong with it from a driver perspective, and he's like, when there's a driver issue, the drivers are controlling the hardware. So don't just immediately think because I found the driver issue that it's a driver issue. It could be a hardware issue. So when he's tried everything in the arsenal of things he can do to resolve it, I've gone into his shop personally today and gone, what are my options? And he's like, replace the hardware. So in spite of it having literally been replaced about 3 months ago, I'm now into replacing what is essentially a new graphics card with a new graphics card, probably identical to the same one, like I did with the RAM. But it's not because it's been cooked. I think it's just dud. It's just a faulty card. So that's annoying, and I don't have the money to cover it. So I am relying, as always, and I have done many other e-begging sessions for this computer, which makes me think people just get sick of it. I've been reassured by the people of Discord, and many of them are my Patreons and supporters. No, people will continue to support me in this endeavour, regardless of how it seems at this point to have been throwing good money after bad. Not that I spent any money on it. It was given to me as a gift. It has had money put into it, a large chunk of it for the graphics card that's currently broken, or breaking, or intermittently causing problems. That was the same guy. He's pumped so much money into it, as have people who have supported me for other things like hard drives. It seems like a bad thing to do, but it will be the last thing. If it doesn't solve the problem, it's going to be time to get a new computer, which is to say, replace the case and take the working electronics that are functioning in this current case that may be the thing specifically giving me the problem, and replace them with, put them into a new case. So that will be the next thing if this doesn't fix it for 500 quid. But for a quick fix, I can replace a piece of hardware. It's already been replaced, and hopefully that will resolve the issue. And I might be able to get Paul, who bought the card, his money back if I can screw it back together. And it's still got a pristine box that's sat on a shelf because it hasn't long been out of it. Anyway, that's a different issue. Please support me on PayPal and GoFundMe. Links are in the video that I released today on Nathan Oakley 1980. Thank you for prompting the plug. I've done a full one, as I always tell you guys to do a proper one every time, even though I wasn't enthused to do it on BallBusters. So it's in the middle of this BallBusters forever now. But there we go. That's life. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, QE, for letting me do it. Please support me on PayPal.
Right.
I'm dead serious. I do actually need it.
Outstanding. Flatsy.
Superchat.
Superchat.
That was hot. That was not like super chat. That was like super chat. Like, come to bed, eyes voice.
It's just a sticker, I guess.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes sticker. Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot, Unitox Memo. Appreciate that. They've been few and far between. I know it must be getting tight out there, man, or something. And it's around the holidays too. So I told my wife, I said, listen, it's around the holidays and it's a little bit tight, so cut these guys some slack. So, but I appreciate it. All right, we ready?
We are. Fallacies. Let's do this.
Logical fallacies. You guys are seeing it in Discord. If you want to, just hit my viewer. What's it actually saying there? Quantum Eraser Live, man. All right, logical fallacies. Just bust in when you want. This is a pretty informal presentation. We've been through it a few times. This is the BallTARD tools of the trade. We all know it. We all hear I heard him yesterday. I'll point it out the one when we get to it. It's I'll just point it out when we get there. So the first one we're going to start off with arbitrarily is argument from silence fallacy. See also argument from ignorance. The fallacy that if sources remain silent or say nothing about a given subject or question, this in itself proves something about the truth of the matter. So this is one of Shamalamagama Pin Ding Dong's favorite fallacies. I haven't listened to that crayon crunching clown for over a year. I don't know where he is, but I'll guarantee you he's still sporting this because he was sporting it for years. Listen to this. There have been hundreds of thousands of people who studied the second law of thermodynamics, and nobody has caught on to the problem of the atmosphere next to a vacuum. That is a textbook argument from silence fallacy. Everyone got that one? That was pretty easy.
Yes.
You
Nice.
also
Good
have.
example.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
You got a super chat.
Super chat.
Unatoxvimu.
Again?
Yeah, making teeth. Yes. He said making teeth.
Making teeth.
That sounds tough.
Sasha, he lives down the road from me. Shout out to you, Sasha. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, sir.
They make teeth in Coventry.
I don't visit Coventry.
I would, if at all possible.
I do actually. I've got my daughters have tennis lessons there, just like any other city.
I'm pretty sure the teeth are not recycled.
Alrighty then, the fallacy of composition. This is a good one. You'll hear this a lot. This is one of those double take ones, man. You don't know. You know it's screwed up. You don't know what it's technically called. It falls into one of these two guys. The fallacy of composition. Description: inferring that something is true of the whole from the fact that it is true of some part of the whole. And it's the opposite of the fallacy of division. We'll get to that one next. So some examples here of a fallacy of composition. Observational science. This is not only painfully redundant, it's fallacious. Hypothesis, the queen of science, is not observational. The hypotheses ain't floating around out there in nature. So observational science is a train wreck. It's stupid. It's fallacy, composition. Example 2. Empirical, observable, testable, repeatable, and falsifiable, not just observable. Follow? If you just go with this guy, then this is a fallacy of composition. Hope everyone gets that. Pretty self-explanatory. Fallacy of division. Description: inferring that something is true of one or more of the parts from the fact that it is true of the whole. You see, it's just the flip side of the composition fallacy. Example: atoms are natural. Not atom. Atoms are natural. Everything is made of atoms. Therefore, everything is natural. Every dumbass BallTARD follows this nonsense. This is a classic textbook fallacy of division. Any questions on these two?
Yes. I want to use the Ferrero Rocher example. If I've got a Ferrero Rocher and I say, look, I can see what it is. It's nutty and it's chocolatey. Well, it's going to be all the way through. I've got no idea there's going to be wafer and then fondant. And I use it. If I say that Ferrero Rocher is going to be chocolatey and nutty, and that's it all the way through, is that a fallacy of division, composition?
I don't know. That's some sort of English thing. I don't even know what you said.
Ferrero Rocher.
I was with you right up until you started saying chocolatey and nutty. Is it a manual? Is it 4-speed, 5-speed?
Roray.
I have no idea what you were talking about. I was like, what the hell is this?
I'm trying to make the distinction between fallacy and
Ferrero Rocher is a chocolate that is, it's not an expensive chocolate because you can definitely buy more expensive chocolates, but it's at the upper end of cheap chocolate. Let's put it that way. Therefore, it's $5 would get you like 20 of them. And they're little tiny balls wrapped in gold foil and then in a little cup, like a tiny version of a cupcake cup. And they are on a transparent tray so that you can go, ooh, look how posh they are. And they were always advertised as, oh, the elites eat Ferrero Rocher after they've had a lovely meal. Therefore, you peasants should really eat them if you want to feel special once in a while. That's how they were marketed, believe it or not. But the consistency is chocolate, then a nuggety, wafery layer, and I can't remember what's in the middle. Some goo.
But go.
There's some goo in there.
Superchat.
Superchat.
It's Unatoxvimu again. But I'm coming to Leamington often, laughing, crying face.
I would flat see if I lived in Coventry. Anywhere but there, to be fair.
Thanks for leading the charge out there, Unitox. Appreciate that, man, Sasha.
Not everybody will get doxed just for super chatting, by the way.
Yeah,
his name is Sasha and he's from Coventry on a live show. We're all cool with this. It's not like we're doxing him or that you'd be doxed if you were super chatting. Don't let it discourage you.
It's a big but grim place, Coventry. It's fine.
Can we stop knocking the hometown/city of the super chatters, please?
Yeah, Adam. Get control of yourself. Now, to answer your question, I don't know. You got to come up with a better example, something I know.
Okay, I'm going to go Twinkies, right? So
Okay.
just to explain fallacy of composition and fallacy of division difference. I've got a Twinkie,
Okay.
and I say that thing is just all sponge and sugar. I've got no idea about some weird kind of creamy discharge that's going to encompass its middle. If I infer the whole thing is, what am I doing there? If I say that whole thing is made of sponge, is that fallacy of composition or fallacy of division? Or do I have to know about the division before I can realize? Do you see what I mean? That's what I don't understand. What I struggle with is the point.
I don't understand this one either. I was with you up right until you said sponge and stuff. I mean, Twingo. Is it electric? Is it
Twinkie.
This is a train wreck. So say it again.
What, with a different example?
No, go ahead with the Twinkie again. Go, because the Twinkie's
Espanol?
spongy. Huh?
In Espanol?
No, don't
Wouldn't you
say
have
it.
to put it into
Do it. No, I have no idea. No.
Wouldn't you have to put it into
I've
a
got a
claim and say,
Twinkie.
like,
And I say, somebody else got what I'm saying that wants to say
I
it?
kind of get it, but I
I'm
think you
going
have
to
to put it into
go
a
with
claim.
yes. Yes. Yes, Adam. Absolutely.
No, Tanks does.
Well, I think you have to say something as long for something around. Okay, well, a Twinkie is made of flour and sugar, therefore all pastries are made of flour and sugar. Or if Twinkie has cream in the middle, therefore anything that has flour and sugar has cream in the middle. I think that's to be more of a completed sentence, and then find out which fallacy you're making.
No, I think Adam's convoluted gaggle screw about Ferrero Rocher is a lot better.
Oh,
I
brother.
didn't even understand.
I think that clarified it for me, actually. No, Tanks. Yeah.
That was very good.
Yeah, thank you.
The
We're going to move
fallacy of
on.
composition
I don't know.
is one thing. Fallacy of division is the Ferrero Rocher. Fallacy of composition would be that all chocolate things are made of only chocolate or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
You good?
Not helped.
Okay.
Don't know. Next time I hear one of these things, I'll try to discern.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for
Reification
your help.
fallacy.
I just. Like
We're going to
say,
move on, Adam.
I know you thought I was struggling and you've just ignored me there, floundering. Fine.
Okay. Next fallacy.
Reification fallacy, everyone's favorite. When an abstraction, that is an abstract belief or hypothetical construct, is treated as if it were a concrete, real event or physical entity. When an idea is treated as if it had real existence. Example, gravity bends, dilates, warps spacetime. That's reification.
This is hypothesization.
We'll get to you've conquered the pronunciation of that word. We're going to get there. Anthropomorphism fallacy. This is the error of projecting uniquely human qualities onto something that isn't human. Usually this occurs with projecting the human qualities onto animals. But when it is done to non-living things, as in calling the storm cruel, the pathetic fallacy is created. Example, science says or explains, la la la. It's
Okay.
this one.
Is it anthropomorphism when earlier I told you in the after show that it wasn't a human quality because I described my computer as the devil and then described how the fans were running at 666 RPM.
Yeah.
The devil's not a person, per se, or an angel. You're not going to really get away with that. But that's still anthropomorphism, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd put it in the pathetic fallacy. A reverse stuff pathetic fallacy.
If I said, if you're a horny toad, and I'm not talking about its skin.
Huh?
Yeah.
Are you
I
guys on?
didn't talk
Are you doing lewds?
It's a quick.
Well,
say yes.
you got
Oh yeah, go on, Flat.
you got a super chat.
Super chat.
You got 2.
No way.
Yeah. Into the break. He said pine is not elm. Comp error. And then Vlad on Flat Earth said, "Great show, fellas. Keep it going. Shout out to everyone in Discord and YouTube. Thanks, QE and the panel."
Well, thank you. Appreciate
Right.
that. We're getting into a super chat frenzy.
What?
All right.
What about the sexy bow beast? Would that be a pathetic fallacy?
Yes.
Nice.
Now, you got now. Follow this. See if you guys could follow this. Now,
Lazy dog.
Oh, shut. Just relax. I'm still talking, Adam. I wanted to make a point. You jumped all in there. What do you want?
I don't know. Entertainment.
I don't know. Now I lost my. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Listen, a lot of these are rhetorical devices, the reifications, because look, a lot of people tell stories, right, to make them a little more. How would you want? They add color, right? Calling the storm cruel in a story is not fallacious. It only becomes fallacious when you start using these as arguments in intellectual discussion. Does everyone follow that? Now, if you're going to read a story and you get a whole bunch of this sort of thing, the storm's cruel, you're not going to say, "Oh, I'm going to put down the book. This is fallacious." No, that doesn't make any damn sense, right? So take that with a grain of salt. Does everyone understand that? Hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to have a within reason
Yeah.
attitude.
Yeah.
And
So-
may I add, okay.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So in the same context as you don't necessarily have to take somebody who's calling a storm cruel. I think you used as an example, right? Well, when you hear somebody describe potentially use gravity or science, let's go with gravity. When somebody says because they've dropped something, "Oh, that had a lot of gravity," and it isn't necessarily the point they're making beyond it's moved through air and is more dense than it, although there are exceptions to that. You don't necessarily have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If that word that they've used in that particular scenario isn't that crucial to the overall point that they're making,
Right.
kind of a pick your battle scenario. You know, you don't need to point out that when someone uses it's not an analogy. What's the word when you say storm is cruel? There's a specific word for that. My tongue. Doesn't matter. There's a word when you use that type of
It's
language.
a rhetorical device.
Yeah, a rhetorical device. That wasn't what I was thinking, but anyway, I'll remember when it's stopped recording. But yeah, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Pick your battles. You don't have to start correcting people when they use the word gravity or use science incorrectly out of context. Yeah, if it was in a discussion about the nature of reality and they're trying to prove something with some pseudoscience, yeah, you take umbrage.
Exactly.
But when somebody says, "Well, it's just science," don't worry about it. You've got better fish to fry.
Yeah. True. Very good point. Yes, exactly. That's my exact point. Yeah. So, reification, also known as concretism. Nathan's favorite word, hypostatization. You got that one?
Hypothesization.
You almost screwed that up. Or the fallacy.
So it is. It's not ST. It's hypothesization. Nathan
No,
said it perfectly.
It's hypostatization.
No, it isn't. Not hypostasis.
Hypothesization.
There's no pasta in there.
It's the multiple T's in the middle that I can't wrap my mouth around.
Yes.
Hypothesization.
That's wrong.
Really? Spell it out.
It's hypostatization.
Oh, it is a pasta. Okay.
So,
Say it slowly.
Jeez, oh my.
Hypothesization, you can say it, but it sounds like you're a Dumbo if you say a complicated word really slowly to get it out.
I thought it was like turning into a hypothesis. Like, so a hypothesization.
Yeah, it's close, right? You could screw this one up real easy. Yeah. So, can we move on past this?
No, because I've had a couple of shandies and I want to crack at it. Hypostatization. Can't say
Bad.
it. Couldn't do my T's, but hypostatization. Yeah, that's what I go with.
Hypothesization.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
I think
Flatsy,
it puts-
give it a go. What about Flatsy? You give it a whirl.
Hypostatization. I don't know.
Oh, brother.
Hypothesization.
Right, you guys all screwed it up. You put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable because this I right here, that's not a long I, it's a short I. So it's hypostatization, not hypostatization.
Not an I.
I like tization.
Hypostatization.
Hypostatization.
So do I.
Jeez, oh man, we've been on this thing for how long?
I like hypostatization better.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Adam's loving
Anyway,
this.
so the fallacy of misplaced concretism. Let's move on.
Yes, is a fallacy of ambiguity. When an abstract belief or hypothetical construct is treated as if it were a concrete real event or physical entity. In other words, it is the error of treating something that is not concrete, such as an idea, as a concrete thing. A common case of reification is the confusion of a model with reality. The map is not the territory. And by the way, when we charge you, we knobs, sack sniffing cretins with reification, when you conjure then appeal to a model that you never had or ever will have, we're not charging you with living in or on a model. That wouldn't be a fallacy. It would be a paddy wagon, horse tranquilizer, rubber room emergency lobotomy. We're charging you with treating your model that you never had or ever will have as proof of reality. Get it? Hopefully.
Hopefully, it's when we say we don't, or I have specifically said many times, we don't live on a model. It's the context.
Yeah.
Take that, give it a tiny bit of spin, change the inflection, and suddenly, oh, they think that we say we're standing on a. No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been down that
but
twisted.
Simon,
I've been down that twisted, stupid trail. Go ahead, Brian.
sorry for stepping on you. But they will then also say that they'll also say that all the maths work within their model, but all the maths they're talking about are the maths of their model. That's what they'll say. I had it only earlier where they'll use their proof for their model is the maths that fit their model. Even though I know they don't actually have a model, but that's the proof for the model is the maths that are from the model fitting the model. You know what I mean? So in a way, they are believing that they live in a model. We're not even saying it to them. It's like as if they actually subconsciously are trying to tell themselves, you don't live in a model. This, project it onto someone else or something. Because they do act like they do.
Yeah, it's twisted, man. They need to be friggin' lobotomized.
Well, there's one fact that we know with certainty about their model, whatever it is, even if they never get one or whether they do get one, and that is it's going to be based off a flat plane.
Yes, I was going to get onto that. I'm glad you did it. Exactly. When you say they haven't got a model, well, what have they been using this whole time? Have they been using a flat plane?
Flat plane. Yes, nicely done. Straw man fallacy. You attribute an easily refuted position to your opponent, one that the opponent wouldn't endorse, and then proceed to attack the easily refuted position, the straw man, believing you have thereby undermined the opponent's actual position. If the misrepresentation is on purpose, then the straw man fallacy is caused by lying. Ooh, that has deeper ramifications. Claim. Scientific experiments are conducted to reveal the cause of natural phenomena. The fallacy. How are we supposed to conduct experiments without man-made objects? So, shout out to Shits at 40 and his glue-sniffing brethren, that treasonous, treacherous traitor, Hanoi Jaren. They do this constantly. Nobody ever said...
Again.
Say again?
You should say that last sentence.
How are we supposed to conduct experiments without man-made objects? That's their objection. Well, that's an idiot straw man. No one ever said that. That's not the argument. In fact, it's a category. It's nonsensical.
That was my argument for gravity in 2018 against you. It didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work, did it? Nobody ever said or will ever construct a scientific experiment without using man-made objects, you slobbering knuckle draggers. Now, I was aiming this towards the BallTARDs. Now it's pretend to clown flat earthers. So what we're saying is a natural phenomena. See, this is the really important part. What we're saying is that the natural phenomena you observed, that is the dependent variable, must be natural. Not the physical apparatus set up to test the natural phenomena, dependent variable, the effect with the potential cause, the independent variable. You glue-sniffing fungus munchers. Next block of instruction, how to open up your eyelids on vacation. Anything with that? That's pretty pedestrian.
Before you go on,
Okay.
straw man fallacy. It's a really important line. The end of the paragraph. If the misrepresentation is on purpose, then the straw man fallacy is caused by lying.
Yeah.
Number of times over this past year, either flat earthers or all ballers, where that's so true, and that becomes apparent.
Yes.
It's just that point. Yeah. If it's on purpose, then they're liars.
Yep.
That's why. Yeah, I've always held back using that term, and you should. This is an evidence that these people are liars. And Whitsit, I'll cite you as a great example. You do misrepresent on purpose. Jaren, you've done it. Yeah, science doesn't prove things. You're a liar. That's what you've shown over this time.
Whitsit Armstrong.
Let's give it a more simplistic example for the audience. It's also nicely tied up in a flat Earth evidence. So, if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, and every distance to the horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and the distance to horizon in the black swan image is beyond that limitation of a sphere Earth radius 3959. Therefore, the Earth is not a sphere, and the horizon is not Earth curve. I'll say the last bit again. The horizon is not Earth curve. That's the conclusion of the argument. Okay. Response from Baller. Cranes are refracted. Okay. That is a straw man.
Yep.
Say, you have, with this argument, ignored refraction. It's obviously in the image. I can show it in the cranes. Every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than... What's that about cranes? Straw man.
Yep. Also, red herring.
Yes.
Which is next?
I think that the straw man is the most used fallacy in this arena, because
Also,
I'm sure
it's also the most inaccurately claimed fallacy
Yes.
when calling fallacy. That's just a straw man. No, I've accurately represented your position and annihilated it. That is not a straw man. Get lost.
Yeah, that's a different thing, isn't it? When they're claiming, someone claims that someone strawmanned them when they didn't, they just refuted their argument. Yeah.
Red herring fallacy is a fallacy of distraction. It is committed when a listener attempts to divert an arguer from his argument by introducing another topic, or diverting attention from the real issue by focusing instead on an issue having only a surface relevance to the first. Yes, sir.
Right.
Again, Black Swan
When-
is a great example. That red herring is perfect from Black Swan again. I'm sorry, Brian. You can go ahead. My bad. I've already given the example once, and QB's linked it.
No, go ahead.
to
I'll go
how-
after. It's not. No, go ahead.
I'm just going to do the same thing. So you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say. I was going to ask when somebody answers a question they weren't asked. That's not a red herring, is it? That's technically not a red herring. It is a diversion, but is that a red herring? Just asking. I don't
Well,
know.
red
Yeah.
herring
think
is
it-
bringing up a subject that's just completely off, has nothing to do with previous.
Yeah, I
reason.
understand
that's
the
not-
outward
that's
red
non-sequitur.
herrings.
That's a non sequitur fallacy.
Yeah, that's it.
Red
Well,
herring
yep.
is an appearance of being linked to the subject. A non sequitur is just completely devoid of any connection to the subject. A red herring, like when you say, in the black swan image you've referred to in the modus tollens, there is refraction and you've ignored it. That's a red herring because it's nothing to do with the horizon, which is the actual discussion point. But it appears like it is something you should chase after.
Yep.
Oh, so the difference between non sequitur and red herring is claims to be relevant, basically.
Just to have a seeming bearing or a seeming relevance to the discussion. So non sequitur would be to say, there's no men on that oil rig. Yeah, that's completely non sequitur to the point. But, well, the horizon is your argument, but I'm going to focus on how there's not been refraction focused on in your modus tollens, and look, here it is in the image. That's a red herring.
Good job.
So the question I asked when I asked when someone answers a question you didn't ask, is that a red herring? Can that be called a red herring? Or is that
Potentially,
something
depends on the answered question that they haven't been asked that they're offering. It could potentially be a red herring to a piece of evidence you've just offered. Yes, potentially.
Yeah,
depends.
Yeah, well,
Can you give the example?
if I asked you, Nathan, if I said, how come the horizon in the black swan image doesn't adhere to a globe of radius 3959 miles, and you said because the cranes are because the cranes are refracted, would that that's not an answer to my question, but is that still technically a red herring?
I would go more towards non sequitur.
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's the transition point. With no context, it becomes non sequitur.
Yeah.
Without any context. So when QE says that they go refraction, that's actually non sequitur. When they just refraction, it means nothing.
That's not it's not it's not a begurk, and it's not a gabak. It's a bagak.
Parrot. It's parrot noise. It's what you hear before. Polly want a cracker.
it's not a begurk, you jerk.
Okay.
All right, here's
No
an example. I
ornithologist
do have an
when it comes to
example
parrot
here.
Noises, my bad. I will consult my ornithology expert next time I make noises like parrots.
Oh, you got that one correct. That is an ornithologist. Correct. So, I do have an example of a red herring fallacy. Claim, please show gas pressure without a container. Fallacy, how do you account for gas pressure gradients? The argument is concerning X gas pressure, not delta X gas pressure gradients. And this is surface relevance. So this is a classic textbook red herring fallacy. Yes? Got it? Good. Equivocation fallacy. People screw this up. It's something terrible. They misspell it. They misphrase it. What's the classic one they use? A false equivocation fallacy.
Yeah, I'm going on mute for this one. I bought this up all the time.
Wait, what? Isn't that false equivalence, or is that another one?
Yeah, they get
Just
false.
Owen, I'll just deal with this, QE. Let's just both you and I pipe down for this one, eh?
Okay.
Yeah, they get false equivalence and equivocation fallacies mixed up, and they say false equivocation fallacy, which is it's friggin' hilarious.
Me and Arwin, we don't do that. That's not what we do. We're not going to suddenly have everything that QE ascribes to me and Arwin. I'm just saying we have occasionally balled that up, the difference between equivocation and false equivalence. So that's it. There's nothing else. We're not suddenly guilty of everything QE says from this point forward, Arwin and I. Just want to get that in. Go ahead, my bad.
What is the difference, actually?
Exactly.
Equivocation. Well, just take a look. Equivocation fallacy, also known as bait and switch, is the illegitimate switching of the meaning of a term that occurs twice during the reasoning. It is the use of one word taken in two different ways. So, Scientific theories are the result of validated scientific hypotheses. Example, my theory is that white dwarfs are caused by luminescent gerbils. Right? Do you say it? Example, the force of gravity bends space-time. And refraction, terrestrial refraction versus fishbowl refraction. So a classic one is the rumpus. I can remember it was absolutely classic when he was discussing gravity and he was talking about Newtonian and then immediately switched to the bending and warping of space-time. That is a classic textbook equivocation fallacy. It's using a word in an argument, in a single argument, in two different senses.
Most common one we experience is refraction.
Oh, here
And
it is.
level.
I'm sorry, I got the dumpus right here. He said this, the force of gravity bends space-time. See the equivocation?
Yep, perfect. Textbook.
Yeah.
Force of what? The non-force in pseudo-force space-time bending?
You got it. Yes, that's what he said.
Isn't that the
However-
emergent force theory?
The easier one to understand is going to be refraction, I feel, for our audience because it's so common.
This one.
So your average bull argument will start to show you potentially physical demonstrations of refraction with sugar water, for example, with a laser bending through it. And they'll describe mathematically something like Snell's law and maybe even show you examples, right? Then in the next breath, they'll keep saying the word refraction.
Yep.
Now they're talking about 7/6 of a radius value, which is actually called terrestrial refraction. But they don't ever tell you that they've stopped describing Snell's law and are describing now 7/6 of the radius because
Yes.
they're both the same word.
Yep.
They're just very different things.
Yep. That's a bait and switch. See, hopefully everyone sees the bait and switch. They bait you with one sense of the word and then switch it with another. Yeah,
It's like
this
putting
is
two completely different
as
sentences
opposed to-
together, right?
As opposed to mass, which will have two different definitions for one word, as opposed to one word being used with multiple definitions.
exactly. That's easy to get
Context.
confused. You had a problem with that for a long
Very.
time.
Ages. I can only do it after you've summarized one of them. Then I can give you the other.
But that's all right. We all have our
Yeah.
bugaboos. Good?
I just want to add that just so people really understand, when they're talking about refraction and they're giving them, they talk about Snell's law, or they show you a picture of a pen that's in water and in air and it looks like this displaced, and then they go on to start talking about terrestrial refraction, but they don't even if they do say terrestrial refraction, what they're detailing is not refraction. That isn't refraction. What they're calling refraction is mathematical, and it's purely based on an unmeasured R value. So they don't have any refraction.
Exactly.
But they give themselves, what's the word I'm looking for? Credibility with by speaking about Snell's law, and then they go and talk about something that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But most people don't know that.
That
Yes,
is
sir.
known as. Yes, exactly, and that's known as equivocation fallacy of equivalence.
Equivocation. Yeah, thanks for that. Did you read that somewhere? Because we had one in the politics server, which now I'm banned. He said that's an equivocation fallacy, and everyone lost.
I just had that off the top of my head. I didn't know it was
Right.
previously used by someone else, actually and intentionally as a misspeak.
Yeah,
No, I just
ask
made
Flatsy, remember that?
I can't say I do. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You might not have been in there. He said it. I'll tell you what, everyone in the room fell out. And then we used it the whole night saying, no, that's an equivocation.
Okay.
Go on, Moot.
Right.
Okay.
Another false equivalence would be like all the different ethers, right? If you just unify the unified ether theory,
Well, you cut
the
off.
medium for light, and it's the electric ether, and it's the chemical ether. It's all of it. You can all do a false equivalence on it, right?
No.
That's you have to just fall into the trap. That's not a false equivalence. That's an equivocation fallacy.
Oh,
Yeah.
You just
A
fall
false
into the
equivalence.
trap.
damn it!
Yeah.
It's an example.
I'll give you an example of a false equivalence. When they try and bend the laser, when they have a laser shooting up the way to make it bend through sugar water, and you looking through air, and them trying to say that's the same thing, it's not. But that's a completely false equivalence. That's a good example of a false equivalence.
Yep.
Sorry.
Would that be a composition fallacy as well, or no?
Well, possibly. But we don't need to go chasing down that road. Usually the false equivalences are done with analogies. You'll listen to one analogy as compared to another, and you say, wait a second. There's something going on here. And false equivalence between air and water, like Brian brought up, or liquids and gases. They'll do that nonsense too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even better example would be the person in the train being a false equivalence being that person, and a person standing on a rotating globe.
Yes.
Without any, yeah.
Exactly. That's another. Oh yeah. There's tons of them. Yes. Correct.
Well, what they typically will say, right, is that refraction is contains I guess a more dense medium. Therefore, this change in the medium would cause refraction.
Yeah, it's stupid. That's not Snell's law.
No, not exactly.
No,
No, thanks.
Okay.
No, not exactly. So what they're doing is they're describing anything that occurs in the air. Let's just assume that what they describe is true. Then they'll say, and here it is in my curve maths. It's 7/6 of the radius value of a sphere Earth, I'm assuming. You see how when you're describing the physicality of something might do something in air, yeah, it might. That isn't 7/6 of that radius value.
But the false equivalence is the behavior of light in terms of a concentration gradient of, say, medium, when one is a liquid and one is gaseous. That's the false equivalence. You're making the statement that the behavior, the path of light will behave the same in the two different phase states.
Yep.
That's the false equivalence there.
Yep. All right. Ad hom fallacy. Also known as personal abuse, personal attacks, abusive fallacy, damning the source, name-calling, needling, and refutation by character. Description. Attacking the person making the argument rather than the argument itself when the attack on the person is completely irrelevant to the argument the person is making. Claim. Scientific theories.
Hold on.
It's a really popular one when you run out of arguments.
Let's do it, Arwen. Arwen, you can be the ad hom fallacy user.
Okay.
The Earth's sphere radius 3959, every distance to the horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Therefore, the distance in this image demonstrating the horizon beyond that geometric limitation disproves the horizon as Earth curve. Therefore, Earth's not a sphere. What say you, Arwen?
I say that you didn't let me finish my rebuttal and think that you're a bastard.
Terrible. Do it to me, Nathan.
You will need a flat Earth for your axis of rotation claim. Huey.
You glue sniffing fungus muncher.
See where QE's got the word rather than in bold typeface, different color, and underlined. Can you all see that on screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
QE, just ask me how my day's been.
How's your day been?
You're an idiot. Is that an ad hominem fallacy that I just used?
No.
No.
Not because you weren't in the debate.
Okay, now is a different one. This might come up later. We, QE and I, are standing outside an auditorium together because he and I are about to debate, and all of the audience are around us before we go into the auditorium. Huey asks me the exact same question and I give him the exact same response. Now, that's not an ad hominem fallacy at that point. That's a poisoning the well fallacy.
That is a type of, by the way, poisoning the well is a type of ad hom.
Okay. Oh, cool, because this perfectly fits in this then. Excellent.
like I just did. I was going to get through this, but you guys interrupted. The claim is scientific theories are the result of validated scientific hypotheses. The fallacy or the remark back, you're a moron. That's the classic textbook fallacy, Adam. If somebody systematically refutes your claim by and through which demonstrates that you're a numpty, a dipshit, a retard, Burke, a wee knob, sack-sniffing cretin, a liar and a pretender clown, etc., then assesses your belly-laughing train wreck and announces you as one or more of the previous characters, then by definition, it is not an ad hominem fallacy. Does that...
Yeah.
You following? Because I refuted your argument, and then I came back with a perceived insult. That's not an ad hom. Because that was not in lieu of an argument. I just train wrecked. Everyone got that?
It's an assessment.
It's an assessment,
character.
It's just a supported opinion.
Let me just get this in. It becomes an assessment of the character
Yep.
of the person whose argument you overcame
Yes.
after you overcame their argument.
Exactly.
It's just
Well,
a supported
the-
opinion
sorry.
on that topic. You've just said why you think that person is a moron.
Yes.
Yes.
But
You
the
could
most
add
common.
at the end, just one last point. No, well, yeah, you go, Brian. I'm really sorry. You could add, as demonstrated by the fallacious reasoning he employed and I just overcame, therefore moron. Justifying the use of the insult, yes, strictly true, but by justified means and demonstration, therefore not an ad hom. That's the main point. Go ahead, Brian.
If you started the
That
sorry,
doesn't sound like Brian.
I didn't-
Brian!
I
I
didn't
think
know.
Brian!
I didn't know Nathan was going to end it.
Adam,
Right.
Adam is saying that. Go on, Adam.
It's only short. I was saying if you started your rebuttal with "you're a moron because," and then took their argument apart, there isn't really. It explains it better. All you're doing is it's a summary statement when you say you think you're a moron. You're just giving an opinion. Yeah, you're not saying you're paraplegic. Yeah, you're not saying you've got one leg. It's a description of the person's position. Yeah, if you say you're a paedophile, then you're in fallacy realms, aren't you? When you're saying you're a moron, with regards to that, you're actually attacking their intellectual position on this, and you've supported it. It's not even a direct insult, even though it isn't. If I just said you're a moron, yeah, it's actually an appraisal.
Yes.
I'd agree with Adam there. I wouldn't see how if Nathan calls someone a moron after he's demonstrated that they're incapable of understanding something within a debate, then that's not an insult. That's, as QE, as you say, an assessment. That's not an insult. It's an insult to call someone a moron without being able to demonstrate that they are. But what I was going to say is the most common ad hom in this arena is "you don't understand" from our opposition. It's a constant. They used it for years. You don't understand. That is an ad hom because they haven't demonstrated you don't understand. Go on.
It's also a baseless assertion fallacy.
Yeah, but it is an ad hom because if I say you don't understand as a rebuttal to something without me ever demonstrating it, then I'm basically saying you don't have the intellect or education or whatever to understand it. In other words, you're lower than I've demonstrated you to be intellectually. Blah blah blah.
It's saying you simply don't have the comprehension skills for this subject matter. You just don't understand.
Otherwise, you would say you misunderstand, right? Because then you're going to get specific.
There's a bit of a spastic in chat that's probably missed the point I was making. So no, I'm not sure who it is. What about spastic, Adam? No, that's the point I was making. If you were to insult somebody with the term spastic, you're implying they've got spasticity issues, wouldn't you? If somebody's got an incoherent or a complete lack of comprehension of the argument they've tried to put forward, and you've just either taken it apart and shown why, or you're about to, and you say you are a moron because, or said it and that's why I think you're a moron, it's not an ad hom, it's an assessment. You look at somebody who's perfectly able-bodied and go, "You're a spastic," and you're just being rude. A bit like the commenter, probably.
All right. Appeal to authority fallacy. This one gets butchered probably more than the equivocation. People have no. Say again. Say again.
I was laughing at my own equivocation.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Appeal to authority fallacy. This is very easy, folks. This occurs when authority in question is not a legitimate authority on the subject matter. Simply. Appealing to an authority. Well, let me just go through this. Your appeal to authority, if you back up your reasoning by saying that it is supported by what some authority says on the subject. Most reasoning of this kind is not fallacious, and much of our knowledge properly comes from listening to authorities. However, appealing to authority as a reason to believe something is fallacious whenever the authority appealed to is not really an authority in this particular subject. From Stanford, the ad verecundiam fallacy concerns appeals to authority or expertise. Fundamentally, the fallacy involves in accepting as evidence for a proposition the pronouncement of someone who is taken to be an authority, but is not really an authority. This can happen when non-experts parade as experts in the fields in which they have no special competence. Yeah, you guys getting this now? Fallacy. Dr. Craig Venter maintains that refrigerators violate the second law of thermodynamics. Not a fallacy. Dr. Craig Venter maintains the genetic code is the software of life. You see, Craig Venter is an expert in genetics. He's not an expert, as far as you know, in refrigerators or the second law of thermodynamics. By the way, if an appeal to authority fallacy was merely testimony from some authority, then every subject matter expert witness brought into court to testify could legitimately be objected to for appeal to authority fallacy and thrown off the friggin' seat. Does everyone get that?
Yeah.
Billy
One
Madison
bit
example
about it.
is Billy Madison example is he's in a science lecture and he's low IQ in the character he plays, and the lecturer's talking about the medulla oblongata of a crocodile and how that is contributing to its aggression level. Billy Madison steps forth and says, "Oh, told me that alligators are angry because they've got all those teeth and no toothbrush." Right? Well, that would be an appeal to authority fallacy. Mama's not an expert in crocodiles, right? But they're angry because they've got no toothbrush. There's Mama. Therefore, that's true, according to Billy Madison. But that's an appeal to authority fallacy. Now, by comparison, when you're standing in front of the brain surgeon and he says, "Yeah, we're going to have to remove that section of your brain. It's going to be very traumatic for you. You're going to be conscious while you do it." And you go, "Have you done it before?" "Yes, I've done it once before, and prior to that, I watched someone else do it." "Oh, right, I see. So you're just going to appeal to authority then?"
Yeah, that's not an appeal to authority.
Exactly.
A
He is the
classic appeal to
authority.
authority. Right.
I'm giving you an example of what is not an appeal to authority. Appealing to Mama for why crocodiles have got that aggression level, that's an appeal to authority. When you directly appeal to the authority on a subject, that's a subject matter expert as opposed to appeal to authority. Anyway.
The one I was going to use as an example, because I've heard it so many times in this arena from our opposition, is engineers have to use gravity every day.
Yeah.
Right? That's a classic, because engineers are not gravity experts. Not that you can be a gravity expert, but if you could, they're not one of them. They're engineers. So they're an authority on something, but not gravity. So
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see that the Newton's equations and gravity with engineers. I'm still waiting to see that, by the way. I'm still waiting to see specifically where they use them.
I'd like to say that. How much gravity did you use today, Dave? 57 newtons, mate.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that, along with how I'm waiting for that, along with how Newton's equations are derived from Einstein's field equations. We're still waiting for that too, after 8 years.
Proves time travel.
Yeah, the begawking, they just begawked that horseshit, and not once have we ever seen it. The next one. Argument or appeal to ignorance fallacy. This fallacy occurs when you argue that your conclusion must be true because there's no evidence against it. This fallacy wrongly shifts the burden of proof away from the one making the claim. Example, dark matter is created by invisible three-toed gnomes throwing pixie dust in a black hole behind the Crab Nebula. Can you disprove it? No? Therefore, it's true. Example, another one. Moon gravity is responsible for ocean tides on Earth. The challenge, scientifically validate your claim. Response, how else would you explain it? It's really stupid. Anything on this? You'll hear this a lot, by the way. No? This is pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, I was just gonna kind of reiterate what you said about the moon's gravity supposedly controlling the tides, and you go, really? How did you validate that? Well, what other explanation is that?
Yeah,
it's like hang on, that's a reverse of the burden of proof as well. It's like,
yeah,
hang on, it's not on me. You're after making this claim, and I've asked you to support it, and I'm supposed to now invalidate it. You know?
Yeah, it's real. This is really stupid. A lot of people don't catch it though. But there's the poster child examples for you. Good.
That one is like, instead of how else would you explain it? It could be say, well, that's what my priest says. Yeah. Which is almost this is the point I was going to make is that to me is like an appeal to authority. The misconception where you think of an appeal to authority has whether the authority is in a heliocentric sense true or false, but that paradigm, yeah, actually this is an appeal to ignorance, because even the supposed authority can only come up with the same rebuttal.
Yep.
Or if it's not the moon, well, what else is it then?
Yep.
Even NDT is giving you the same thing. He's the authority, but he can only use an appeal to ignorance fallacy. He can't.
Yeah.
You haven't ever given me any evidence whatsoever that there isn't unicorns, have you? When did you do that?
Yeah, that's another fallacy.
Anybody. Nobody's ever shown any evidence that they don't exist.
Another fallacy, proving non-existence. That's connected. I don't think that one specific. It's not in this presentation, although I do have it in another one. But that would be proving non-existence, and that also comes with the shifting of the burden of proof. By the way. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to ask a question. What about when someone, let's just say, I've had it recently where I don't know who it was, but MC Toon or somebody was disown. Oh no, it was Charles Globert Math was disowning Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was kind of given a rendition. Oh well, when I asked him, he's like, well, he knows some stuff, but he gets things wrong or whatever. But the whole point was that he was putting in the caveat that he gets things wrong, so he wouldn't have to adhere to Neil deGrasse Tyson's authority on something. And what Neil deGrasse Tyson would say about whatever gravity, whatever was wrong. So what kind of fallacy is that? That must be a fallacy where you deny the authority. That has to be also in a fallacy, because that's illogical. If this person's supposed to be the authority, how can you deny that authority? Does that fallacy exist in name, or is it something we're only encountering in this arena?
You can't say an authority is wrong. It doesn't work, does it? If you're going to make that statement, you're going to have to support it. And therefore, it's
a baseless assertion fallacy on their part.
Well, I suppose it's a bit like saying NASA lies about everything, even though we could use them as an aggressive witness.
Yeah,
You
it's
know what I
just
mean? We can cite them, so therefore they don't lie about everything. So I suppose it is kind of baseless because.
I think it's also Arwin's described this as confessional debating. In other words, if they know that you're going to use a hostile witness to assert that the claim of Coriolis' earth turning underneath stuff is Neil deGrasse Tyson with his football and earth turning underneath it, cementing the absolute notion that you've got a claim that earth turns underneath stuff. Oh, well, Neil deGrasse Tyson gets stuff wrong. That's the tact that they'll take. It's in advance of the argument, confessional debating. Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson's going to be getting things wrong. I decry his authority on these subject matters. Therefore, I've not got to get any tricky situations he might present to me with him as a hostile witness.
Is that not appeal to humanity or something like that? Because you're appealing to his fallibility there, as opposed to his knowledge or authority. You're appealing to the fact that whilst he is an authority, he's still fallible. That's what he's saying. Well, he still gets things wrong, still burns his toast.
Yeah, but I would say it's if I had to call it something, because I don't know if it already is named as a fallacy. If I had to call it something, I'd call it the self-authority fallacy, where you're removing someone who's an authority out of the equation and basically placing yourself as the authority to be able to do that, simply because what that authority states is not what you want. It's not the party line you want.
It does have a name. It does have a name. It's a hand-wave dismissal fallacy. Hand-wave dismissal fallacy.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good one for it. Yeah, that would be a good way. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we good on this one?
Superchat.
Oh, super chat.
Yeah. Ab Jude, what makes the sun and moon rotate in the sky?
Unicorns.
Good, thanks. All right, circular reasoning, begging the question.
Good. Oh, I'm going to give more props. That was all sorts of fallacies in really concise. I love that.
It was.
I could categorize that. I could put that into about 5 different fallacies. I reckon.
Go ahead.
You got. No, let's not. I probably couldn't. Let's just move on.
I'd have
that was good.
I'd have to see it. I heard it, but I can't see chat right now because I can't do it.
Well, is the person a baller? Does anyone know? If the person's saying that, are they a baller or are they flat earth?
It's a baseless assertion. It's a burden of proof reversal fallacy. It's a non sequitur fallacy. It's what else we got in there?
Hand wave dismissal of the. Sorry,
hand wave dismissal at the point in question at the time. It's got a. You could ascribe that statement in isolation to so many fallacies. I think. Anyway, you'll listen to it back after the fact, Q, and you'll go. That's a fucking super chat.
If it's a super chat, I'll see it.
It's also not the globe model because the globe paradigm, because that is that the sun and moon aren't really, well, the moon does move, but the sun is stationary. So that would be incorrect to ask us what causes that, where you're denying your own model at that point once you add in the sun.
Oh, it's all rotating. The simple answer is, and it takes away
it's
the
a straw man.
Well, no, just leave it as an honest question and answer it honestly. Yeah. What makes the sun and moon rotate in the sky? I don't know. There you go. No need for fallacy in the question. No need for any problem in the answer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is a show about fallacies, so I'm going to recontextualize the super chat into a very useful example of a multitude of fallacies. Now, because we don't know how he's phrased it or what his position is, baller or otherwise, I don't need to recontextualize it and say that as an isolated statement can be put into about loads of categories of fallacies that we've just covered. That's useful.
Yeah.
Regardless of his actual sentiment.
Okay, so first of all, then the sun or moon rotating, what makes that rotate? I don't know. The fallacy would be to try and mug me into making a suggestion. That's the yeah.
I didn't make a claim about it. What did I make a claim about it? What's going on here? It's also a straw man. It's great.
I mean, there is also the point that against all obvious observation, I've never seen the moon rotate. I've witnessed a bit of libration, if I suppose. I've never seen the moon rotate. I've never seen the sun rotate. So in that sense, it's also a false question. It's a straw man. Because who's seen those things happen in the sky? No one. So why should I have to explain something that nobody's ever witnessed?
Well, we've got a follow-up super chat.
Super chat.
I got another from Abjude that sent the previous one with a sticker, or kind of, it's like a gift sticker. Superman pair. Is that what that is?
Oh, perfect.
Fine,
So he's left it to be completely ambiguous, even though he's given extra context. I thought it'd ruin all the context with that sort of chat.
It gets better the more you think about it, doesn't it? Because it is heliocentric in your. Like, I just totally poo-poo. Well, I've never seen that and anything. The only reason you would claim the sun and moon are rotating is if you believed you were on a spinning space pair. And the reason the moon shows you its constant face is because it's rotating because you're rotating, and it keeps the same face because of magical rotation matches. So the only reason you would ask that question is you would have already presupposed that the sun and moon are rotating, so that you don't witness the sun and moon rotating.
So it's begging the question.
Yep.
Reversal of burden of proof.
Yep.
Straw man.
Yep.
The list goes on and on and on. Great super chat.
Yeah, that was. It also could be, and I don't think I have it in here. It has the twang of a leading question. There's another phrase for that. You know, what is that? Have you stopped beating your wife?
Yes. There's no good answer to it.
I think that's a leading.
Also having tea time.
Yeah, yeah. It has a twang of it. I'm gonna look at it later after the presentation's over, see what I come up with.
The answer to that is I gave it. I said he's talking to you, Adam.
All right, can we move on?
Yep.
Yep. Circular reasoning, begging the question, occurs when the premises include the claim that the conclusion is true, or directly or indirectly assume the conclusion is true. Example, McWest's Earth curve calculator gives accurate representations of Earth's curve. Round and round, what comes around goes around. I'll tell you why. Fallacy, idiots. In response to geodetic surveying proving Earth curvature. Example, this is from Craig Fight the Tight Shirt. If we are measuring a tangent, the response, what tangent? Craig, whichever tangent your eye line is creating. Response, that's begging the question fallacy. A tangent is a straight line or a plane that touches a curve or a curved surface at a point, but if extended, does not cross at any point or at that point. See it? So as soon as you say tangent, it immediately invokes a sphere.
Yes.
That's the point I was going to make with the previous example. Just scroll up. It's the same thing, isn't it? Nick's West Earth curve calculator gives accurate doesn't matter how mathematically it's correct. It gives accurate representation of Earth curve. As soon as you reckon you've done that, you're done, aren't you? You're recognizing Earth curve. It's the same mugging off. As soon as you recognize a tangent can only be to a curved surface. You can't.
Yep.
Yeah. There's no other
Who said that?
reason for using that vernacular, and therefore you accept the position.
Who said
Quite
that?
the flat Earth said it. Oh, sorry.
No, who was the response, or is this hypothetical?
Oh, this example, this is a hypothetical.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fallacy of pre-assumption, isn't it? So you're adding in something into the debate that you have never proven to exist.
Yep.
You got a super chat.
Super chat.
Dose. Roger Ledwell and Abjude again with a gift sticker of hippos coming out of the water. There you go.
Bows coming out of the water. All right. Appreciate it, guy. Thank you very much. My wife will be severely impressed. All right, Nathan, here we go. Modus ponens. If P, then Q, P, therefore Q. The corruption, affirmative consequent, formal logical fallacy. See it? If P, then Q, Q, therefore P. You see, the P's and Q's are switched around. That's how you catch this, right? Be careful out there. Hey, Roofy, you idiot crayon munching mung. You have a big problem with this, don't you? That's all I have to say about that. Friggin' moron. All right. Modus tollens. If P, then Q, not Q, therefore not P. The corruption. This is Nathan's favorite. Denying the antecedent fallacy. Watch the P's and Q's. If P, then Q, not P, therefore not Q. Everyone catch that? You see how it's switched up? Yeah? Denying the antecedent. Or let's give a couple examples. I'm sorry, somebody want to say something?
You didn't give an example.
I am. I'm getting to both examples down below. You good? Here we go. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, we'll focus on the first modus ponens first, and then we'll move on to the modus tollens, if that's okay.
Well, we're gonna.
I think we all think he's rushing, Brian.
I'm going to give the example.
Fallacies. You're not breaking down the logic. We're breaking down the fallacies.
So here we go. Affirming consequent formal logical fallacy. Notice I put form. I highlighted that because it's based on the form. If P, then Q, Q, therefore P. Here we go. If evolution is true, P, then insert any Darwinian grab bag post hoc observations, fossils, homology, similarity, genetic variation, and others. That's Q. We observe the post hoc observation Q, therefore evolution is true, therefore P. Or, if the spherical Earth with a radius of la 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 is true, P, this is classic. We will observe differing elevation angles of the stars, la la la. Q. We observe differing elevation angles of the stars, Q, therefore the spherical Earth is true, therefore P. Did you notice I wrote this like 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Did you write that about the angle 6 years ago?
Oh, this is old.
I thought that was a recent addition or a change.
No, this is old. This is 2016. Okay.
But the fallacy is that you're compounding your own belief, isn't it? It's like if P, the Earth is a rotating globe, then Q, I will observe star rotation. Q, I do observe star rotation, so P, the Earth is a rotating globe.
Yes, you can do it with absolutely anything, though. Take it to the levels of absurdity, and people will understand it easier.
Yeah, I'm going to do it right now.
Oh, you're about to descend it to absurdity.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I thought that was I thought you were finished.
Yeah,
with
I wasn't finished with that one. The logical fallacy.
I apologize.
No, you're good. The logical fallacy is that P doesn't necessarily follow from Q. For example, if I had just eaten a whole pizza, P, I would feel very full. Q. I feel very full. Q. Therefore, I've just eaten a whole pizza. Therefore, P. This is stupid. Couldn't I have eaten a 20-ounce ribeye with fries or the old 96er to get very full? Everyone say it. This is a train wreck fallacy.
You've got it with some like red herring-esque connection with being full and eating, but you can descend it much further into absurdity.
Oh, sure.
If I am Italian, and where earlier you were like, insert any garbage here. Give me any statement of fact that I can repeat. Literally anything. Literally, give me a statement of fact. Anybody.
Statement of fact. Cheerios have holes.
If I am Italian, Cheerios will have holes. Cheerios have holes. Therefore, I am Italian.
Yep. That's one.
You have a super chat.
Super chat.
It's
That's
a thank
Italian.
you. It's a thank you gif with a bowing pair
Oh,
from Abjude. From Abjude.
well, thank you. Okay, anything more on affirming the consequent? And we'll get to I said, couldn't I have eaten a 20-ounce ribeye with fries or the old 96er? You got to prove the spherical earth first, Crayon Munchers, before you head into this genre. This is a flamethrower because I told Nathan a long time ago, every single globe earth proof is an affirming the consequent form of logical fallacy, without exception.
Sometimes they will call it about exponents. Have you ever heard that? They reorder. Sometimes they'll reorder what is essentially an affirming the consequent so that their denial of the statement comes first.
Yes.
So in your example, right, you've got, if I've just eaten a whole pizza, then I'm very full. But if you just say it again, right, well, I must have eaten a full pizza because I'm very full. It's a modus ponens, isn't it?
You can change. You got to be really careful when you switch them.
Yeah, that's what they do to then call it a modus. What I'm saying is, the statement itself will affirm the consequent by its nature.
Yep.
But because the order's been changed, they can say, if you're not smart enough to catch it,
yep.
Well, no, this is logical consistency. If P, then Q. P, therefore Q.
Yes. You got to be quick with this one. You got to know this one inside and out to catch it.
Yep.
They'll try to be sneaky. Go ahead.
Sometimes they'll give you half. Sometimes they'll only give you the second half. They'll only affirm the consequent without giving you the prior statement. Sometimes they'll give you the prior statement and leave you to affirm the consequent on their behalf.
Yes. Yeah.
This one is the most tricky and slippery of all of them.
Yes, sir.
Super chat.
Hey, super chat.
I got critiqued once by QE. Let me just drop this last thing in, right?
Okay.
You have to be careful when you're defending this, because sometimes someone is lined up and affirming the consequent because they haven't actually done it, and therefore at that stage not guilty of the fallacy. Now, what I did once, or I made a mistake again, QE pulled me up on it, was infer that they're going to affirm the consequent before they've done it and then take it apart. Now, my defense in the moment was, yeah, but I knew exactly where he was going with it. It don't matter. Unless they actually affirm the consequent, you can't call them on it, right? When I say they're using the first half and letting you infer it, there has to be the inference either implied or made for you to call them on it.
Yes.
It's complicated, but I just wanted to drop that in because you did call me on that one.
It's a field thing, and so they'll do the half thing right here. If I had just eaten a whole pizza, I'd feel very full. Well, I feel very full, and then leave it right there. But it's implicit. The conclusion is implicit. So if the conclusion is implicit with their dumbass statement, then you can call them on it.
This is why the black swans are so powerful, because it requires them, but to keep using the steak analogy, it requires them to make the statement that you don't get steaks from cows. That's the logical conclusion they end up going to, because they can't have the horizon because of the syllogism. It all falls apart on them.
Yes.
They have to deny their own reality, i.e. you get steak from cows, to maintain their stance. The only place you can maintain the stance is you don't get steak from cows when you get to the
Well, the alternative is lie. Well, the alternative is, we covered it earlier, we build a straw man in place of a response to the argument, which there is none. So the alternative is to lie. That's when you get your parroting off of refraction. Well, I'm glad it was dropped in and highlighted in this show. At that stage, people who do understand the logical consistency when it comes to the black swan and still offer a refraction, that's when they're liars.
Yeah.
They know it's a response to the horizon, that they've understood in the consistency of the argument, but they offer a refraction as a rebuttal. That makes them liars.
Yes, sir. Super chat.
Roger Ledwell, he wanted to say what he was trying to say earlier was Mr. Cheswick. I think his other one came in blank.
Oh, okay. Mr. Cheswick. I heard that name before.
Mr. Cheswick makes music. Subscribe to Date, Mr. Cheswick.
Makes very British music.
He's made some original songs recently, and so I don't hesitate to recommend people go and check him out. In other words, the guy's putting pen to paper and making music, right? He does a lot of covers as well. He also does a lot of what would you call them? It's not a cover when you put spin on it and turn it into your own. Parody, maybe. He does a lot of parody music videos and songs. Again, taking a lot of work to produce, and he gets very little love. Please go and check out Mr. Cheswick.
He's a proper gentleman as well. Old schooler. Yeah, because back in the day he was part of the side. Remember when he banned Anthony from using his song? Because he's really good, really funny. And there were cliques back in the day. Again, on Dell's side, actually thinking about it, causing shit. He was part of that and then realised what a dick he was being. I remember meeting him at... It was one of the protest rallies. I can't remember. It was in Liverpool anyway. He bothered to come up to me and say, sorry for being a dick to the Flat Earth community, you know what I mean, and causing problems when there was none there. And that was, that must be 4 or 5 years ago. And if you look at him now, he's a top bloke. It's a shame he don't. He used to get loads of coverage. It's odd he doesn't, because like I say, he's always putting stuff out. I'm still subscribed, so yeah.
Okay.
Shout out. I listen to all his songs. My family listen to them. I play them. He's one of the few people. I like his music. In other words, I will actually play it to my family, put it on the big stereo and stuff. Some people might go, "Oh, I don't necessarily like the tone of his voice." You're missing the point when you realise that he's making the music, he's putting the effort in, he's writing it and producing it, and then putting it out on YouTube for you to just have a little gander at. At that point, you go, "Yeah, well worth the credit."
Okay, the next one. Denying the antecedent. All right, the next one.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. No.
Super chat.
Super chat.
Super chat.
Super chat. Super chat.
It's Abjude twice. How many hippopotamuses must be in the scientific method?
Hippopotamuses. They're hippopotami.
That's an elephant hurling fallacy.
And then a gift sticker, KO. Hippopotamus, KO, knockout.
Yeah, cool. All right, can I continue now? Denying the antecedent. Yes, I'm going to continue. Denying the antecedent. Remember, this is another formal logical fallacy. If P, then Q, not P, therefore not Q. An example is, if they are buried together, P, then they both existed together, Q. They're not buried together, not P. Therefore, they didn't exist together, therefore not Q. Haha, idiots. If you give a man a gun, P, he could kill someone, Q. He has no gun, not P. Therefore, he can't kill anyone, therefore not Q. You like it?
Love it.
Yeah.
Something new.
Yeah, that one really seals the deal. This is an EvoTard argument. Dumbass crackers.
I got a new word for you.
What?
Hippopotamusization.
Hippopotamusization. Nice one.
Yeah. I can do it.
Brilliant. I thought you were going to go with hippopotamus hurling fallacy, and you went the other way. Brilliant.
Hippopotamus hurling fallacy. That, yeah. All right, this is a really this one happened the other day. This happens constantly. The EvoTards that it would just be right on the tip of their lips. But cherry picking. They had no clue what this thing means. Most people don't. Listen very closely. When only select evidence is presented in order to persuade the audience to accept a position, and evidence that would go against the position is withheld. Uh-oh. You got some big problems here. Because as soon as you make this cherry picking claim, so now the claimant, that's you that just got cherry picking, must prove the opponent is deliberately withholding counter evidence and identify it specifically. Does this ever happen in our genre?
Oh, absolutely. And you gave an example earlier where Rumpus said that a force causes the bending of space-time. He had on screen a citation that had words to the effect of, when detailing gravity, you can consider it or think of it as a force. However, it is not a force, end quote, or something like that.
Yeah.
And what he does is highlight the section with it on screen that says you can think of it as a force.
And stops. Yeah, that was on Ranties. I busted him there. I'm there, wait a second. Everyone missed it. I'm there, wait a second. I screenshot it and I sent it over to Skype. I said, wait a second. He just cherry picked that.
but you couldn't get a more egregious example of cherry picking when the thing that categorizes it as being cherry picked is the continuation of the sentence that you haven't read.
Yes.
It's complete magician. It's a complete magician trick at that point.
Yeah.
But let's not forget. Oh, sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
I was just saying that there was a classic one on Jose JG's some years ago. I can't remember who it was on our side. It's not AC Montreal. It was what's his name, Dave Riquier, where it was about whether water vapor was a gas, and someone on the ball side was reading out this citation or reference from online, and he left out the end part, which stated clearly that water vapor was a gas.
Yep.
Right, and he made a point of leaving it out. And Dave Rakia had read that exact thing only that morning. And he said, "Hang on a second, you left out a part there," and he read out the whole thing. and even Jose called out the guy for it.
Right, I got a question for you boys then. So, is the Blackpool Swan, the first image we were given, considered cherry picking when you cut the left-hand edge of the picture off?
Yes, absolutely. That's cropping an image to exclude something that would disavow your own argument. That would be cherry picking.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely perfect.
I know we've dwelled on what it is. I also want to dwell on what Kiwi brought up first, which is to say, if somebody presents you a citation and you reply with cherry picking, it's upon you to then go to the context of whatever it is that's being presented and demonstrate how there is an out of context section. Right?
Yep.
Now, that isn't to say that you take ownership of page 1 through 477 of the book and every single non-connected statement made in that book. You take the statement as cited. Now, if the person contradicts themselves completely 2 paragraphs later, it doesn't change what you have cited or make it cherry-picked if the person themselves contradicts themselves. If the statement that you are utilizing is true and contextually makes your point by citation, that is not cherry-picked. It's only if the context of the citation goes on to completely contradict itself within that particular section. In other words, well, while you might consider gravity as a force, for the cherry pick bit that only gets used, but it is not a force, then that definitely is cherry picking. Whereas if someone goes on like George Musa to say, well, gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force, so slightly rearrange the order. Yeah. Cherry picking isn't taking the context of it is not a force, because that is a statement of fact when citing George Musa. The overall context is it's not a force. Thinking of something as being a unicorn after making a declarative statement that it's not a force doesn't make the statement cherry-picked, because you give his whys and wherefores about how you could think of it as a force after declaring that it isn't. That is not cherry-picking.
Yeah. I'm going to go over that here in a few seconds. And by the way, it is impossible to cherry-pick actual scientific evidence. because then you would have to have at least two different conclusions for that particular topic discussed. That never happens. There's only one conclusion.
I was going to say that's not scientific evidence. If there's two different experimental outcomes, then there's two dipshits or one dipshit and a person proven them wrong.
Yep.
Well, if you're using one and not the other, or both, and you're cherry picking the one that's wrong, you're like, well, this at that stage, because it's wrong and been disproven by an alternative, wasn't scientific evidence to begin with.
But to begin with, exactly, you got it. Yep. Quote mining fallacy. We're gonna be going over this here in a sec. Go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to say, or it is still scientific truth, but you're using it as a straw man. Yeah, you can still use scientific. See, you said you can't use scientific evidence. Can't be cherry picked. It's
exactly.
a statement of fact.
Yes.
Yeah? Now, what Nathan's alluding to is taking a statement of fact and only taking a part of the statement. Yeah? Something that's in context as a whole statement, but only you're taking a part of it, which changes the context. Well, when you've got something that's a scientific fact, it comes with certain criteria that mean it is a scientific fact, which require hypothesis, experiment, proof. Those things are there as a requirement. This is the point of cherry picking. It's kind of like taking that and taking just a small section of it to prove your point, which denies the hypothesis, or the outcome of the experiment.
Yes, this did get covered earlier with the example with observational science.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Well, you've got a super chat.
Super chat.
And I just put two things together. Jude also is the sender of the super chat. Anyways, I just put it together that it's Get Be Get or Jet Be Jet. So much love, Flatsy, QE, Nathan, and not the least of all the good esteemed Effie members. So
thank you.
And Brian.
Yeah. All right.
Kevin, skew you as well, Jude.
Yeah.
And me.
Yeah, you were scared. What are you, chop liver?
Arwin.
Arwin too.
Arwin and others, but mostly Brian.
I tell you what I do like, though. I love the way that
do?
Flatsy was first.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right, quote mining fallacy, quoting out of context. This is a type of cherry picking. What does it mean to quote someone out of context? After all, every quotation necessarily excludes large sections of the original material and is thus an out-of-context quotation. What makes this a fallacy is to take a selective quotation which distorts, alters, or even reverses the originally intended meaning. This can be done accidentally or deliberately. People don't know what quote mining is. Number one, posting a citation with appropriate reference isn't quote mining, you glue-sniffing fungus munchers. If it was, every friggin' research paper with a bibliography or works cited page would be rendered void and the authors charged with academic fraud. You clueless clowns. Following that logic from Retardia, these citations are cherry-picked, and the paper should be dismissed and the authors charged indicted with academic fraud. Kim, a delayed choice quantum eraser from Physical Review Letters has 10 violations on the works cited page, and Zhao Sung Ma, the quantum eraser with a causally disconnected choice from PNAS, has 52 violations. Let's look at this one. You idiots. So let's go down. This is, like I said, from PNAS, quantum eraser with the causally disconnected choice. Let's go down to the bibliography or works cited page. Footnotes should be coming up quick. Here we go. References. All of these are citations within the body. There's 52 of them. All the way down, all 52. Ignorant ass crayon munchers. It also indicts every single encyclopedia and dictionary ever written and justifies my wife rejecting the chicken marsala recipe I gave her because in the very same recipe book, directly underneath it, it has a chicken pot pie, which I hate. This is so stupid. Number two, the only way to quote someone as if a third party is quoted in a document. The citation will then read as quoted in. Duh. All these people are doing is just exposing themselves like Mae West. They're snatching their own wigs off. To cite the appropriate reference isn't a quote, it's a citation, you dumbass crackers. When pretender clown fairy tales implode, they immediately appeal like Pavlov's dog to quote mining or cherry picking. Yeah, get ready to reap the whirlwind, crown muncher. Because, did you think you were done? You now have to support your charge, i.e. show where and how each were taken out of context. I get metric tons of people that haven't even read the friggin' document in question. How in the world can you charge me with quote mining taking out of context when you haven't read the friggin' context yet? This is tantamount to running up to a police officer and charging me with robbing a bank. Then when he challenges you with who, what, when, where, why, and how, you just stare at him. Thanks. This shows, like I said above, beyond the shadow of a doubt, you haven't the first friggin' clue what quote mining is. And psst. You see, it's absolutely impossible to quote mine from actual scientific literature because it's empirically proven phenomena. The only way that you can possibly quote mine from a document or reference is if there is more than one conclusion validated within the said document. If this is the case, the document is contradictory, not empirical, not scientifically validated to begin with. You friggin' boneheads. Moreover, personally, I use a variation of parenthetical citation. Heard of it? Obviously rhetorical, they haven't. It's practiced every day from the 5th grade to the Supreme Court and is used extensively in scientific literature in support of claims. Irrespective that this format isn't conducive to posting works cited pages, you crayon munchers, I don't want to have my post presentations longer than War and Peace, so I post the citations with the appropriate reference in the body, minus a works cited or bibliography page. By the mere fact that you brought this up is alone a screaming testimony that you never reviewed scientific literature ever. You wouldn't know what actual science was if it landed on your face, spun around, giggled, and whistled Dixie. Do you need any gasoline? More gasoline with your matches. In that same vein, charge. But in the very same reference QE you used, it says astronomy is science. That's an all or nothing fallacy. An all or nothing fallacy when it is suggested or implied that one must believe all or nothing of a particular set of beliefs. So thanks for that one. You hear that a lot. Number 2, did I cite it? If not, then I'm not responsible for it. You see, if I post a citation discussing the crucial importance of the bond force constants in the water diameter, however, within the very same reference, it goes on about how the bond force constants in water diameters are created by invisible three-toed gnomes behind the Crab Nebula throwing pixie dust in a black hole, and how they are the cause for invisible three-toed gnome calcium oxalate stones, that fact, number 1, doesn't refute, render null, or impugn my citation or have any impact on it whatsoever. Number 2, doesn't denote that I believe that invisible three-toed gnomes exist or have kidney stones. Number 3, doesn't obligate me to explain or justify in any way, shape, or form invisible three-toed gnomes, crab nebulas, black holes, or calcium oxalate stones. Number 4, shows unequivocally that your clumsy appeal is an incoherent, belly-laughing, red herring fallacy from the Black Lagoon. In other words, Mr. Magoo, I'm responsible for the citation. Duh. Welcome to the 5th grade. Again, by the mere fact that I had to explain this to you, demonstrably reveals not only that you've never reviewed scientific literature ever, but brings into serious question how you ever passed high school. In other words, you're a demonstrated no-depth Wiki Discovery Channel parroting, pretender clown numpty muppet dipshit. How you like that?
I think you'll like this. You got a super chat.
Super chat!
From Theo Megawordy. I think I know who that is. How many curvilinear radii do logic fallacies have?
Purple. Anything on? Thanks, AI.
Did you
Any
not have an example with
I have.
criminal? Where's the criminal example? If not, I'll give it.
I'll go after Nathan.
Which one are you talking about?
You had an example where there's a guy in court and the prosecutor presents his written confession in his diary and explains to the jury that in the written confession there are details that could have only been known by the perpetrator of the crime. That all sinks into the jury. The defense steps up, asks the jury to turn to page 290 of the diary. And on 290, it says, I am Lord Saviour Jesus Christ, and all will bow down before me.
That's an old one. I didn't use the Lord Jesus Christ with that one, by the way. What did I say in that one, Nathan? Did I say I am not guilty of this crime? Some shit like that. I can't remember.
It's cherry picking, isn't it? It's an example where you're giving a citation from his confession and exampling how it connects to the crime, only for someone to say, yeah, but later in the book, the guy says he believes in fairies.
Yep.
So what?
Well,
Just spit it out, Brian.
because every time I was trying to say something, I thought you were finished and you weren't. There's a classic example within our arena where when we bring up Einstein, I had this presented to me many times, where bring up Einstein over the years as being his general theory or his theory of general relativity is the current gravity, right? And Newtonian mechanics is being superseded. And they try and argue that it's Newtonian mechanics is still relevant, and even according to Einstein, it's relevant. And they bring up some interview from the BBC, I think, was it one of the big spreadsheet newspapers in the UK from back in the day, where Einstein referred to gravitational fields. And they try and use that when I remember using something from Einstein, one of his quotes about general relativity. I can't remember what it was now because I don't use it anymore. But it was something like that. Some quote I kept on using about general relativity, and they would bring up this nonsense about him using the term gravitational fields in some interview for the Daily Mail or someone in the UK, and how I was only cherry picking from his work. That's what they tried to say. And I was like, no, if he contradicts, I said to them, if he contradicts himself with his own words, that's nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
His general theory of relativity is, colloquial theory is set in stone. It is what it is.
Yep, exactly. You got it. Yes. All right, next one, genetic fallacy. Attempts to discredit or support a claim or an argument because of its origin. That's Genesis, when such an appeal to its origins is irrelevant. Example, you got that argument from Nathan Oakley in Quantum Eraser. That's from Shamalama Gamma Panda Ding Dong. He used to do that daily back in the day. That's a pretty easy one, genetic fallacy. Yeah. False dichotomy.
QE scientific method.
Second?
QE scientific method.
Yeah.
Yeah, the QE method.
Yeah, that's all genetic fallacies and insanity. False dichotomy, also known as a false dilemma or a black or white fallacy. The argument tries to force a conclusion by offering or implying an incomplete list of alternatives. Typically, only two options are considered, while in fact a number of additional options are available. There's another spin on this. I'll give you an example first. There are only two choices, natural and supernatural. That's what all the BallTARDs think. You forgot man-made or synthetic. So that would be a false dichotomy if they left one out. Now, what else that's not spoken here? It can also be a false dichotomy if you prove one or both of these are bunk. Does everyone follow that? So there's two ways you can overcome, you can get away with this, or you can't get out of it. Does everyone follow that? Yes?
Yes.
No? Yeah.
Explain, please.
I just explained it.
Oh, you weren't specifically talking about the natural, supernatural, and synthetic. You were talking about the fallacy in general.
Yeah. There's a
Oh,
way.
okay. Sorry, I do understand then. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. Shifting the burden of proof. Making a claim that needs justification, then demanding the opponent justifies the opposite of the claim. Example, Craig, fight the tight shirt. Scientific evidence of gravity is quite easily, it's called, listen, this is the way he spoke, so I kept it the way he spoke. It's grammatically about third grade, but I digress. Scientific evidence of gravity is quite easily, it's called gravitational redshifted photons leaving the surface of the Earth. Response, as exampled by Craig. Exampled by the photons are redshifted as they leave the surface of the Earth. And response, well, why would that happen if gravity wasn't the cause? So that's number one, it's shifting the burden of proof. It's also another fallacy that we went over above. Argument from ignorance. You guys caught that?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. He hasn't been able to support his claim, but when he can't support it, he's asking you to refute it with your explanation that you never claimed to have.
Yep.
The worst one, the most egregious in my humble opinion currently, is with the horizon itself.
I had it only today with 3 or 3 different people at one time where, well, you explain what's blocking the bottom of boats and buildings. I asked, what is the horizon? Because they weren't claiming it was our curve, but it was up to me to explain what the horizon was when they were trying to claim it as our curve without stating it's our curve. And when I asked them that, they accused me of deflecting. It's not deflection. If they're asking you we're asking you how come there's blockage at the bottom of buildings and whatever by the horizon. You know, I'm not making claims about the horizon. You're making claims about the horizon. So it's not up to me to, yeah, go on, Nathan.
That's the statement. It's not my claim.
Okay, I got.
Yeah, well, what was that? Sorry.
I was going to move on.
Yeah. Well, I just want to throw in. I was asked to produce the flat Earth horizon blockage calculator. It did in the past few days, about a few days ago. Like, why would I need that? I don't make any claims about it.
Yeah. So Nathan, I did get these inside here. Logical fallacy, I just didn't format them. Logical fallacy, proving non-existence. Description, demanding that one proves the non-existence of something in place of providing adequate evidence for the existence of that something. Yeah. So, a negative claim. This is from Stephen Hollis, Thinking Tools, Cambridge University Press. A negative claim is a colloquialism for an affirmative claim that asserts the non-existence or exclusion of something. So, the burden of proof rests with the person making the claim and a positive claim. It is shifting the burden of proof, another fallacy, by the way, for the person making the positive claim to insist that those who deny the positive claim have the burden to prove that the positive claim is false. This happens constantly. And this, I'm going to format these. This happens all the time. I hear this all the time.
Well, as you're running down the list there, QE, it seems to me that, from my experience in this arena, that our opposition work within logical fallacy all the time, and we're trying to work within logic. So when we're debating, it's logical fallacies that's been thrown at us and disguised in different ways.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to spot them. And when we don't, we lose those debates.
It's a fair assessment. And
if you cannot identify the fallacy that's being perpetrated against you, you will inevitably fall into arguing against the fallacy itself. Rather than QE's about to summarize this. Go ahead, QE.
the fallacy. Concluding that the truth value of an argument is false based on the fact the argument contains a fallacy. This is the last and only port in the storm of logical fallacy addicts. This, up here, this seems to be the mental midget's get out of incoherent jail free card. Here's the steps. See if you can recognize them. Carpet bomb barrage, logical fallacies. 2, get embarrassed. 3, bagak, fallacy. Listen up, tards. If you use fallacious reasoning to support your claim, then your entire argument is void. Void. That means it's not up for discussion anymore. It's dismissed. Anything on
That's
this?
what they don't get.
Yeah.
That's where they just press respawn. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that they will never get or will never concede. That again, it's about gentlemanly behaviour. If you're having a discussion to get to a point, they're not, are they?
Nope.
Yeah. No, that's the purpose of this. It's not about actually trying to get a discussion out of it. It's about you realising when reasonable discussion has ended and you're being mugged off.
Yep.
I don't know if this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but when Tim Osman was on Nathan's there a couple of years ago,
Yep.
and he said, no one's claiming that the horizon is our curve. Well, he has a photo of the horizon and claiming it's our curve up on screen. Is that a fallacy?
No.
No.
No, because
to
No, that's
claim
just
a
embarrassing.
fallacy is to
It's
claim
just
that
embarrassing.
the statement is wrong simply because it's been claimed with the use of a logical fallacy argument. When that's claimed, you still have to demonstrate that the thing being claimed with a fallacious argument has got demonstrable proof behind it. So QE may not like my example, but when I say, well, I'm going to affirm the consequent that you can have red cars, and someone says, well, you've used an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy to state that you can have red cars, and somebody says, no, you can't have red cars because this gentleman used a fallacy to claim that you could. That's a fallacy. Because you
I
can.
understand.
At the end of that process, though, there's got to be someone, if it's ambiguous, obviously red cars isn't ambiguous. If it is something ambiguous or something that's not proven, you've got to show it to be proven to say, well, that's a fallacy, because it is actually true that red cars exist, but they won't do that. They'll say it's a fallacy because it is actually true we're on a sphere. No. Using a begging the question fallacy to claim I've used a fallacy is a freaking outrage.
If I, as a flat earther, said, I know it's not a ball because I can prove the Earth's not rotating, that will be a fallacy, surely.
No. It's a fallacy if you can demonstrably prove that they are doing those things.
Or the other way
And
around.
therefore, when I use an affirming the consequent claim they're doing those things, and you cry foul because it's a fallacy, and then show that those things are true, it means that my claim proof of them using a fallacy was still a fallacy, but to claim that it wasn't true simply because a fallacy was used to claim it is a fallacy.
I'm trying to get it in an analogy. I got that wrong. In terms of that, then, me saying that the Earth is not a ball because I can show that there is no that the claim of Coriolis is a fallacy. Is a fallacy.
I'll give you a really simple one, Adam. If I say,
Is that a polite no?
if I say,
Yes.
if I use circular reasoning to say that if the grass is green, it's healthy, and modus ponens, and well, the grass is green, therefore it's healthy. Yeah. Well, you can turn around and say, I've just picked this grass. I've ripped it out of the ground. It's going to be dead. It can't be called healthy, and it's perfectly green, right? So you've employed a fallacy, not modus ponens, and then you point out the fallacy that I've employed, right? So at that point, if somebody turns around and says, well, therefore, the statement originally, which used a fallacy about healthy grass being green, isn't true. Therefore, healthy grass isn't green because he used the fallacy to claim that it was. That's the fallacy. It doesn't make it not true that healthy grass is green simply because someone employed a fallacy to say that it was. To say that healthy grass isn't green because someone used a fallacy to claim it was is the fallacy.
Okay, moving on. Oh, we're down to
Moving on.
Yeah. That's getting painful.
You got a super chat.
Super chat.
Get beget with another hippo gif sticker with victory.
Victory. That's all I know. All right, this is the other ones are, like I said before, logical fallacies. There's over 500 of them, right? You're not going to know them all. The ones that I gave you here today are the most common used in this genre. But I pulled one out just to show you, and it'll get you thinking. What? To get you thinking. Am I echoing somewhere?
Oh.
Maybe.
Well, if you're not, just 500. This is the thing, and this is why I've had questions, because it's not a quiz show. It's not a pub quiz, isn't it? Name that fallacy.
Right.
And it really doesn't matter whether you get the correct definition of the fallacy you're being mugged off with. The point isn't that, is it? It's not like I say, it's not a pub quiz. It's to realise how you're being mugged off with, and a lot of it is just that inherent logic, your own logical thinking, your own cognizance, to realise that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
To use the grass analogy, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter whether you can define it correctly in the list, just to recognise that that's illogical.
It's polite. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're correct.
Hang on a minute. Just because Cheerios are round
no, have holes.
doesn't necessarily mean that Nathan's Italian. Does it matter what the fallacy's called? No. Just because I say, well, Cheerios are round and I'm Italian because of it. No, that's an affirming the consequent fallacy. But it doesn't matter what it's called. Just recognise that because round Cheerios, therefore round Cheerios, and I've used that to affirm that I'm an Italian because of it. I need to know the fallacy. Just know when you're being mugged off is Adam's point.
Okay.
In the old days, we just used to go, that's a load of bollocks you're talking. Yeah. And that's the reality. That's all you're spotting for is within this. You're looking for people that, all of this. You see, a lot of it with the Black Swan, you use it to make some kind of inference to progress your understanding. The way we're dealing with it and what he's tooling you up with is the way we're being mugged off to keep you on a ball. All of these things are designed just to keep you on a ball, aren't they?
Yeah.
To allow you to believe that gravity is the reason your feet are on the ground, and all of this fallacy. And it's showing you, I think at the beginning of the show, we talked about filling the cup up, and I was saying just recognising when they're trying to fill the cup up. This is what filling the cup up is with these fallacies. It's a useful tool, particularly in debate. If you can, it's all right after the fact, isn't it? It's just it's in debate how quick you can spot the fallacy.
Yes.
and then have fun with it. That's
Yes. Yeah, it is. I pulled this one out. You're not going to see this one too much. I just wanted to show you how you can quickly be fooled, right? And by a complete ass-hat train wreck. This is a type of red herring fallacy. It's called the fallacy of irrelevant thesis. It's arguing a point that's irrelevant to the subject at hand. So pay attention to this. This is pretty cool. So this is the example. You're a reporter, and you asked a sole survivor of a plane crash, how or why is it that you were able to survive the crash? Survivor's answers? Because if I hadn't survived, you wouldn't have been able to ask me the question. See, something's amuck. There's a rooster in the hen house with that answer in response to that question. Because like Brian said earlier, this person didn't answer that damn question, did he? Because this is a fallacy. It's a type of red herring, like I said above. What he said is very true. His statement is true. However, he didn't answer the question. How or why he was able to survive. He answered how or why he was able to answer the question.
Yeah, he's answering a question he wasn't asked.
I love this one, man.
That's
This is
what
a
they
really
do a
good
lot.
one.
He's
That's
just
what ballers do a
reestablishing
lot.
that he did survive.
Hold on. Quick question for QE. Have you been watching a lot of politics recently, by any chance?
I've passed my wife. She likes to listen to him, but I haven't paid attention now.
Okay, this is used by politicians all the time.
Constantly.
Yeah.
It is.
So this is more of a fine-tuning argument. I've heard this back in the day. So how or why is the universe fine-tuned? Not how or why you were able to observe that the universe is fine-tuned. This is really clever, man. You got to be on your game. I mean, seriously, on your game.
No, here, this is more an obfuscation tactic.
It is.
Than they do. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've just got to realise it, and at this point, when you spot this fallacy, you can politely just bring them back. No, and you can be quite patronising. No, I think you've misunderstood the question. Not that difficult, is it? I'm not asking you how you were able to. I know you had to survive to answer the question, you retard. Yeah, that's the point though, because that's what the ballers.
Exactly.
That's how the ballers
Did you
will
have
do
to
it.
duck and cover?
I like the way he put that. That's pretty funny.
Piers
man.
Morgan.
Say again?
Sorry, Piers Morgan, the presenter who does the interviews. He is the king of answering things he wasn't asked.
Yeah.
He constantly does it. And then the person asks him a question. He answers something he wasn't asked.
Yeah.
Then the person starts talking to him about that. It's like,
Yes.
no, he wasn't asked that.
Yeah. He Jedi mind tricked the guy that was asking him the question.
Oh,
He did-
and he can go through half an hour of a segment, and the person never gets the questions asked because he keeps answering some other things.
You gotta.
And as you said, he does. Oh, sorry. Go on, Flatsy.
Oh, I was just gonna. I thought you were done. My bad.
No,
Piers
you go
Morgan
ahead.
uses-
Yeah.
He uses the "it's like when" to segue. So someone will ask him a question, he'll seem like he's going to answer it by saying, "It's exactly like when," and he'll answer something irrelevant that's nothing to do with the question he's being asked. And the person that's asked the question in that example that Brian gave will be bamboozled, and not want to seem stupid to not go along with the non sequitur when they're on live TV with a camera poking at them. It doesn't always work. I've seen examples where people have just repeated the question to him.
Go ahead. Flatsy, what you got?
Right.
Hold on a
Flatsy needs
second,
to read
Adam.
the
Flatsy,
super
what
chat.
you got?
I got a super chat.
Super chat.
I don't know if I want to read it.
Really? Is it bad?
Well, it's a little unladylike.
Clever. I thought it took me a while to figure it out, but I thought it was quite clever. But
You don't have to read it. Flatsy, you
read
don't
it.
have to read it. Let Adam read it.
Okay.
He's a
it's the
degenerate.
fallacy. Fallacy with a PH. Fallacy. You are a DI1CK, therefore you are wrong. Yeah. A fallacy with a PH. Fallacy.
Oh, I think I'm gonna have to
Therefore
see
you are-
it though.
What was the end of it? Therefore, you are
Wrong. You are
Well,
a D1CK, therefore
the
you
thing.
are wrong.
I don't get how you can be wrong from the phallic reference to thickness, and then being wrong. That makes no sense.
You are a D1CK. D1CK relates to the phallus.
It's the
I
wrong
get
bit.
it.
Everything else I got. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
Thank you for the super chat.
Yeah, that Nathan ruined. I thought it was
What?
quite good.
What's the problem with it?
Oh God, we're moving on.
Let's see.
We're moving on.
It's all good. It's the perfect thickness and everything, Arwin. Let's move on.
I just want to say that Kiwi, just to point out, when you said earlier about the likes of Piers Morgan who Jedi mind tricks people, he does because the person ends up arguing about all the answers that he answered that weren't the question the guy asked or the girl asked. So he spends a half an hour arguing about stuff that wasn't the questions.
Yep.
You said they changed the agenda, and that's what ballers do. Politicians, media people. Doesn't matter what you're trying to talk about. They've got. It's like talking to my father-in-law. Yeah, he's got an agenda. It doesn't matter what you say back. He's going to tell you. Yeah, and they'll change it and subvert it and use fallacy to bring it back to their agenda. That's what talking to Roofy's like, isn't it? Right? Yeah.
Yeah, Roof is brilliant at that.
All right, we're gonna finish this up. Betty wanted me to add this. That used to be the old presentation end, but I did add it. It's called the John fallacy because Betty, back in the day, I used to hammer these guys whenever they'd come out with fallacies. I'd not only identify the fallacy, I'd give it in context and really nail their hides to a barn door. Right? And I used to do it constantly. It's something I enjoyed doing. So one of the people wrote back in a comment what you're about to read right now. The John fallacy. Get ready. This is it. Blah, blah, blah. The scientific method. Blah, blah, blah. Bold font. Blah, blah, blah. Uppercase bold font. Blah, blah, blah. Hypothesis. Blah, blah, blah. Aunt Sally. Yada, 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 yada. Whistle Dixie. Wibble, wibble, wibble. Pretender clown. Shaking my head.
That's absolutely brilliant.
It is. It's what it's. I'll tell you what. Betty, she saved this for the longest of times and then brought it out one day. I friggin' died. I remember reading it. I just didn't save it. I remembered laughing at it when I first seen it, but she saved it.
This is her rendition of one of your comments.
No, this is a comment. This is someone said this in a comment section.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, because you can
He has
see.
showed me this before, by the way. I already, as soon as you started reading, I forgot what the John fallacy was until you wrote down to this bit. But Betty has showed me this before, and I remember pissing my pants last time I heard it too.
To be fair, it's a fallacy I hear you use often.
It's really very well done. I mean, the person actually took the time.
I was going to say, it's nice to see it written down. It's a bit like that big train station in Wales that no one can pronounce. You know what I mean?
But very well done. Whoever, I don't have the name of the person who wrote this, but you get props, for actually writing this down. So
It's also an appeal to form fallacy. So what he's saying is, based on the fact that John has a structured methodology for response, and it does include uppercase bold font and pink writing, talking about Aunt Sally and Whistling Dixie, calling people pretender clowns, and detailing hypothesis and the scientific method. It's got some very specific constituent parts those two words are hard to say together, that QE does use, right? So what he's saying is good job.
Yeah,
That's what I was going to say, Nate.
Ingredients. They're like
a compliment.
ingredients.
It would be simplified to saying, oh, that's just quantum erasers scientific method nonsense. That's how this would be oversimplified. It's decrying everything QE does by saying because it appears in this format, it makes it worthless. It's an attempt to decry everything John does.
yeah.
It's definitely an appeal to format fallacy.
Diminishment. It's an attempt at diminishment, yet sadly, I find it quite a good summary
Yes.
of an engagement. If you listen to QE with a baller, that's a very good summary of how the conversation will go, them having no rebuttal. Yeah? And it's a bit like some bitch crying, if you look at it really. Blah, 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 scientific method, blah, 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 yeah? The way they're putting it, but unfortunately, they're punches to your head.
Yeah.
Yeah? It's quite
Look
nice.
at the title.
The sad thing is, it's called the John. I'd call it the QE summary. There's no fallacy in there. You address each of those blahs, there'll be slaps to your head. Make it all of those are him. All the blahs, uppercates, all that. They're him pointing out your fallacy, your lack of hypothesis, your lack of scientific method. Yeah, your whistle Dixie wibble dibble. Yeah, and summing up with, you're a pretender clown. I think that's a very backhanded compliment.
It's akin to saying
Only Mr. Crayon Muncher part.
it's instead of the John fallacy, which is saying John's wrong, it's saying the crap song method. verse, chorus, middle eight, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, end. Crap song. What?
Yeah.
That's just a composition of how a song got put together, and maybe lots of songs use that composition and formula, but because you've summarized it and given it the title crap song method, and then summarized the way that 1,000 great songs have been formulated, oh well, that makes them all crap now because you can summarize how a song's formulated, and in this case multiple punches to the globe earth believer's head.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you got a super chat.
Super chat.
Who has the one sending it has joined us since Theo Megawordy, Facepalm Reader.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask if like British people and people with similar accents don't understand how to read internet shorthand.
I'll ask them. Just give me a sec.
Do you mean DI1CK?
Well, I think you understood it.
Well, I was being. It's Flatsy that. He's not British.
No. Don't charge me. You read
You're
it.
not I weren't. I was saying you're not British. I just thought you had greater sensibilities and didn't want to say the word dick.
But what you did is you beat around the bush like I would have.
Yeah, but that's
Beat
me.
around
I
the bush
waffle on
when
all the
talking about
time.
dick. This is going to get double entendre pretty quick.
Well, let me go ahead and shout out Get because he sent another hippo sticker super chat. OP. I don't know actually what that means, but there you go.
I'm not British either.
Hippopotamization. Oh, and that was funny. Well, all these hippos. I like the super chats. I like Alwyn's word. Hippopotamization. Alwyn, help.
It's a difficult one. Hippopotamusization.
Hippopotamization.
No, you're too short. Like I was.
Hippopotamusization.
To make any word possible, to make any word possible to say,
We've all got it. Perfect.
yeah, it's just pipe pasta times Asian. So you have to just break it up like that, even if that's not the way it's spelled. Pipe pasta
Paul
times
Merton
Asian.
trying to describe to somebody
right.
say the word vasectomy, and he was saying the way you say the word vasectomy is to picture that you've got a vase and you're staggering around with it, and you're like, vase-o-ectomy!
Never tell a wordsmith how to work their arts. How dare you?
Brian's pronouncing
Yeah,
the
yeah.
wrong word.
I just can't
Yeah, I'm
pronounce
putting
it. I
in the
didn't
wrong
write it
word on purpose.
correctly.
I'm putting in the
Yeah,
word
me.
times on purpose.
Hippopotamusization.
It's a bit like
Hippopotamusization.
Shirley Bassey and celibacy. Very different things.
Or it's like diuretic acceleration. Sorry, diarrheic acceleration. I thought it was kind of like dielectric acceleration.
This is very incoherent. Let's move on.
Very good, Nathan.
I think John's gone for a drink or something.
Probably getting oranges.
Bananas.
Quite possibly. He's expecting me to do the thing that I criticise others when there are these moments on my show where anyone, please take the helm. Just keep the show going. It's live. But I'm here, so it's all good. I can keep it going.
Is that him finished then? Is that the end of the presentation? He's done a
believe
screen
so.
change on the live Ballbusters. So he's there.
No, that's okay. It's best not to just dwell on an absence of a co-host at these moments. It's best to summarise some of the points that have been made about fallacy. Most importantly, that QE, I don't know if anybody caught this, detailed that this was specific to the genre we're in. If you didn't catch it, because all the way through we're like, oh, they use that all the time. Oh, this one gets used all the time. That's why I couldn't get more than one fallacy out in full before we were jumping all over him. Because this is specific to our genre.
It's not.
These are the fallacies that get used the most in Flat Earth.
I agree with that. It's not specific. We alluded to it earlier. Listen to the lying politicians. Listen to the media people. We just discussed that that's exactly what they do. Subvert, divert, yeah? Straw man. Listen to the media. Straw man's one of the most fantastic things that you see going off, yeah? And it's all, it doesn't matter what fallacy they use, just recognize it and realize it, because they've got another agenda. And go back to the straw man. As soon as you realize it's a disingenuous straw man, yeah, then they're liars, aren't they? They're deceivers. And it's very apparent in the genre we're in, because we've been here a long time and we've honed the skills. But in honing those, shout out to Chocolate. This is his, in doing this, you look at the wider world and you look at politics. And if you ever watch, Nathan, if you ever watch TV, watch the news, see what I'm on about. I know you don't, but yeah, you'll see it used all the time. The way we're lied to, the way we're deceived, and these fallacies, the ways of presenting things to give you false dichotomies. They're the skills they use to deceive.
Did I miss a super chat? Super chat.
Miscovering dichotomies.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, you got another super chat.
I didn't miss it. I came a super chat.
Roger Ledwell, he said George Carlin and poetry for 200.
Right. What are we talking about? No, we're talking about the transference of the skill, really. That's what. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. We're talking about the transferability of these skills, or Adam is, I should say. And I often use it as an example with science, where if you understand how you've been tricked into believing that when someone says experiment, science, hypothesis, and are alluding to proof of what they're claiming in an advert for tyres, scientifically proven to giving you better grip on the track. Scientists formulated this rubber. You'll pick up on the trick because you've understood how they utilize the words of science to imply proof where none has actually been through the scientific method. In the case of tyres, there's no natural phenomena to even observe. You'll pick up on it because of this subject. In the case of Flat Earth, with fallacy, it's the same transferable skill, is what Adam's saying. It's not just, yes, these particular fallacies have been picked by QE because they're specific to our genre. They're the ones used most often. But that doesn't mean to say that once you get a grip of how people affirm the consequent, beg the question, reverse the burden, any of the fallacies that were covered today, we didn't cover false dichotomy, did we? Anyway, you'll recognize them when they're used in other genres just as quickly. But it's nice to have a landing ground to get a grip of these fallacies where you're having them used against you. In other words, most of the effort that people put into learning these sorts of fallacies is born out of necessity. You'll have faced it. If you're pricking your ears up through this show, it's been a long show, but it's been a good show. I love the shows on fallacies. But learn the skills, because you're only here pricking your ears up because you've had to face these fallacies. All of you watching have faced these fallacies, whether you're aware of it or not. Now, if you can recognize it because it's been a specific flat earth argument or globe earth claim that you've had presented to you, and you recognize how to overcome it because you've now understood that fallacy, then you will naturally recognize them in other things, like on TV, as Adam's saying, with politicians, like with the scientific method and the lies thereof, when someone says it in an advert. It's a transferable skill.
Well, I'm going to make a bold statement here, and I would state that politicians and the mainstream media in general have, behind the scenes, been keeping an eye on this arena, because this arena has really brought back the use of logic that in a way that wasn't there since maybe ancient Greece or something. The use of logic is being brought back. And so too, though, is the antithesis to it. I can't say that word right, which is anti-logic or logical fallacy, which is baffling people with nonsense, Jedi mind tricks, as QE puts it. So I think that from my point of view, the politicians these days are better at using logical fallacy. I think because they have to, because they're dealing with more people using logic. That I would say it's down to this arena. This arena has really spawned that.
In the computing age, you're going to have people who understand logic. That's the bottom line, isn't it? That although that type of person in society is often a bit more reclusive, they're not necessarily the overt extroverts that are on stage, metaphorically speaking, when it comes to politicians, that can influence people, or, to put it more accurately, con.
Yes.
It requires confidence. Just understanding logic, it doesn't give you the confidence to change the world. It does give you the ability to recognize bullshit.
Yep.
If you've got a logical mind. And Brian's saying that you'll therefore need to employ more and more logical fallacy to overcome the masses if there's a general understanding of logic. And I'd say in the computer age, yeah, you've got to have people understanding logic. Like my dad, he was a programmer. It's intrinsic to making stuff work on a computer if you're designing programs. What do we have in our current society? Lots and lots of them, and people making them and making money from them, and that's the society we're going to. So we're going to have people with a better understanding of logic.
We did cover the false dichotomy, by the way.
Oh, good.
I know there was a lot of fallacies in there. I stated it as the false dilemma. It's the same thing. It's the false dichotomy.
Okay. Yeah. I do actually remember you doing it now. It's just one of those. It's been a long night.
But yeah, it's been a long night. Remember, I told you that there's a couple ways to defeat that, and Witsit fell into this trap, because I used to say this all the time. When somebody would say it's a false dichotomy, I would say, well, please provide the third choice or more. But that's not necessarily the end-all be-all. You can also have a false dichotomy if one or both of your choices are nonsense. Follow? Everyone got that?
Of course. I mean, it's got, well, you covered whether or not it's crab nebula, pixie dust, or unicorn pixie dust. I mean, it's got to be one or the other.
Witsit did that to you, but you caught him. Remember? He gave you a false dichotomy and you busted him.
No, I don't remember.
No, he was offering, hold on. He was offering a false dichotomy. You said false dichotomy, and he goes, well, what's the third choice? Remember? But
I remember
still
that.
don't remember. Sorry.
yeah, you still
Yes,
don't
I'm sure.
remember that one? Yeah, I remember.
Go on, Arwin.
No, I remember that too. That happening. It's a while ago. But
Reification is at
Hitler was
present.
saying all kinds of crazy stuff like that.
I forget half the stuff that happens on the show. If you're a regular watcher of
At
that
present,
debate,
Reification is pushing a false dichotomy. As
oh,
he has gone out and got some, using the theodolite, gotten some measurements, right? And his measurements, he's asking, did they fit flat or globe? And what he's doing is he's taking flat and he's making it as generic as possible, while also adding as much over 6R to his globe as he needs to add, right? Now, I know that the perspective issue is not part of heliocentrism and all that. I get that. I'm always the one pushing it. But the point is that he's offering this false dichotomy to people. And there's no good option. Do you know what I mean? He's giving you no good options. It's like, no, there's a third option. Do you know what I mean? It's that
hang on a second.
this whole thing is a joke. That's the option.
From what you've just told me, this is more credit to refracted curvature than me for educating me out, and I recognise it. You're talking about holding up 2 flat Earth examples, though.
Yeah. What he's trying to do is hijack he's trying to get you to ignore that he's using perspective, right? Something that's not part of globe maths, right? And then use that perspective measurements and add in as much over 6R as he needs to add, and then give you an option between that, right? That means his measurements fit a globe, or a totally generic kind of 1980s computer screen flat Earth that has no natural effects added in at all, where it's not correctly equivalent to reality. So he's trying to hijack reality, right, for himself, even though what he's trying to use, which is perspective, which is not part of his maths, the maths he has to adhere to, and then handing you a really bad version of what reality really is. So you get to either accept his hijack of reality or his really bad equivalence of reality, and that's your options. You know, that's the options he's given. And when you won't choose one, and you give him an answer that's different from it, right? He doesn't like it because he's giving you these 2 options, and both options are bad.
Oh, it's perfect.
You can either
crafted his pain relief, hasn't he? His pain relief has been molded in such a fashion that he needs you to follow down a certain path, and if you refuse to stay on that path he is carved in that methodology, he's going to be annoyed because he's seeking pain relief with this.
Yeah,
with through here means that you're going to get very used to fallacy. Every question is loaded. A bit like we criticised that or critiqued that super chat earlier with the is the Earth and or is the moon and sun spinning thing. Every question with Roofy is like that. This is how these guys behave. Why? Because they've got an agenda. Yeah, this is why they're like that. Why your engagement with them is riddled with fallacy. If you could chat to him on a thingy, it's not like talking to a normal person. You're unpicking fallacy. This is what these skills are about. Fallacy needs to speak, and then if I can come back, because I want to address the last super chat, but fallacy.
Super chat. Vlad on Flat Earth, he sent, thanks for the great long show. Thanks, QE, and cheers to all.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Brian. Especially
Thank
Brian.
you. And Brian.
And Brian.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking I can earn you $200. Roger Leddell says George Calling and poetry for 200, and that super chat was in. It's quite a famous quote, isn't it? George Collins' bit on this, which is it's probably pertinent, as I alluded to the bigger picture. You can just as well apply it to flat Earth. So only a semi-large paragraph, if you'll humour me. This is George Collin, known as from his stand-up comedy routine. So Forget the politicians. Politicians are put there to give you the idea you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations that have long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They've got the judges in the back pocket, and then all the big media companies. They control just about all of the news and the information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That does not help them.
Very true.
Absolutely. Great quote. Thank you for reading that out, Adam. And it is perfectly contextualized. And he's right. And you can just take it into the context of Flat Earth because he's summarized it in such a manner that it applies to Flat Earth. It also reminds me of something that Mr. Burns said to Smithers. He opens his vault, and inside there's a giant pile of gold and jewels and money. He looks at Smithers and he says, "Oh, Smithers, I'd trade it all for a little bit more."
Yeah. So honest.
It's brilliant.
That was a good one. Very, very well done. Take us home.
That we're going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to everyone who smashed the super chat during this usually dry spell at this particular point in the season, I would say. So thank you to everyone who smashed QE super chat today. Also, I'm going to do a quick shout out to, I won't give the full name, but Robert for supporting me by PayPal. Thank you very much indeed. I've got a GoFundMe going, so thank you for supporting me. Really do appreciate it. Check out my video if you did want to help along with that. I'm not doing something egregious. I have been encouraged to do this. So please check out my GoFundMe, my Give Send Go campaign. Also, Arwin is in dire straits at the moment, so check out the Early Bird Show. You'll hear me begging on there also. So with that aside, thank you to all of you in the live audience for obviously smashing the super chat, but liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and joining QE as a QE member and all that good stuff. Check out the website. Use those arguments. Own those arguments. Repeat those arguments. It's what we encourage on theglobeterminator.com. Check that out. Of course, a massive thank you to today's BallBusters panel for making today's live show possible. And last but by no means least, a huge thank you to Quantum Eraser for making the live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and we will see you all in the next BallBusters.